Alrighty, folks. Welcome into the Central Committee Street with your host, Mike from PA. We are live. Once again, it is February 11th, 2025, and we are back for another amazing political stream. Wow. How is everybody doing today? Hello, Poopy Dan. What's up, buddy? Solidarity, thank you for the tier 3. Delta Frost at the tier 2. Dan Zan with the prime. Thank you all for your amazing support. Oh, man. What a stream we have for you today. How do you best describe today? Should be working towards a more finalized song structure for your intro song next week. You know what would also be a good idea? An exit song. I got to do that on my own, honestly, probably. Not seeing a lot of people cover it, but I was hoping you could bring attention to this. Hoping my job isn't eliminated today at 1 p.m. meeting with our research teams. Elon Musk's team decimates education department arm that tracks national school performance. Yeah. Hey, Cedric, have you heard the Immortal Technique song? Might be good to throw into the intro. No, I can't put copyrighted music like that. Like music that's strongly defended by copyright in studios. No. You can't put that into your music. That's crazy. Thank you, America First. All right, well, so what do we talk about today? Well, Elon Musk and Donald Trump are continuing their... Honestly, I had a way of, like... I hate to be an accelerationist, but we live in accelerationist times. And so, the one thing that is... There are, a lot of things sucks. I mean, there's no doubt about it, but the reality is that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are making Americans aware that you can make big change. Is AOC getting worse at politics, or is it overblown? She's getting worse at politics. And the reason why that is happening is because she is connected to these types of the type of people that work at a nonprofit that is in USAID that targets China for workplace discrimination. She works with the people that are funded as part of the American security state and intelligence operations on bad faith, dumbass shit. And maybe some of these people actually believe they're helping the world by like interfering in Ukraine or Georgia or Taiwan or Venezuela or whatever the fuck else. I don't know what these people actually believe, but this is AOC has always been kind of a little bit weird on national security issues, and I feel like the main point that I would make in the context of all these things is Democratic leadership hits pathetic new low. Even people like the Majority Report are starting to come around on this stuff. Maybe not on USAID. Like, there's two types of people in the world. Basically, the people that want America to dominate no matter what it takes, and people that want us to enter in the next stage of human evolution when we live in a global community where every human being is equal, every human being is endowed with dignity, every human being is given, and society, we have a global responsibility to provide the material needs of every human being on this planet. Like, there's two ways to look at the world, right? Which is, me and mine should dominate, or we need to build global solidarity and care. A new Green Deal for the world, not just for Americans, not just for a couple people, but for everybody. And there are a lot of people that think of themselves as left-wing because they are, more, they want to give more benefits to Americans, right? And they're like, well, I'm not a Republican. That means I'm left. And it's like, no, sweet summer child, you're not left. You're not left. And the other thing I would say to people is there's no bottom. For the longest time, Steve Bannon has said that he wants a Leninistic approach to the American government, and they're doing it. Mike, Trump makes bribery illegal last night. It was effectively legal already. So let's get started with the Majority Report, because they're saying Democratic leadership hits pathetic new low, which is very fascinating, because I was telling them they had already hit the low 4 years ago. The whole pathetic new low thing was when they conspired to block Bernie in 2020. When they said that if he wins a plurality of the votes of delegates, they're going to nominate someone else. when Elizabeth Warren was staying in the race after getting humiliated in Iowa and New Hampshire. Why the fuck was Elizabeth Warren in the race still? Why was Elizabeth Warren in the race when Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg dropped out and they did well in New Hampshire? They did well in Iowa, yet they dropped out and endorsed, and she was fucking getting humiliated and she stayed in? That's what it hit a pathetic new low. And by the way, I was saying that at the time of why aren't people yelling at Elizabeth Warren to drop the fuck out? We need to punish Elizabeth Warren for splitting the progressive vote, for sabotaging Bernie. This is the reality. I had friends mocking the Gaza voters today, and I'm like, why are you mocking people for making a rational decision, especially when the fucking party lost to a 32 count convicted felon? It doesn't win elections outside the national swing. Nothing. These fools scolding the Gaza voters or even doing it is impacting elections.
I have friends mocking the Gaza voters today, and I'm like, why are you mocking people making a rational decision, especially when his fucking party lost a 32 count convicted felon and doesn't win elections outside the national swing? Nothing these fools scolding the Gaza voters are even doing is impacting the elections. And the fact that this party has parts of its base choosing nihilism over voting for it in the face of fascism shows us that nothing the party is doing is having a positive impact on anyone's lives. We had around 50% of the electorate choose a felon, telling people he would do the fascism. So where does this party get off on mocking anyone? Pack of losers. The other thing that is nuts on it is polling showed that most American Jews believe that what Israel was doing in Gaza was fundamentally wrong. So this kowtowing to fucking donors in Gaza is nuts. Once again, out of touch rich fucks steering American politics completely off the rails. Yeah.
I mean, wait. What's this?
Should not, and apparently cannot watch his video because Ethan Klein doesn't like people violating his copyright. Hassan.
Wait, was this like the big 5-head move? Was it the big 5-head meta? Was that like I watch it and then he hits me with a copy strike? Like, what is happening?
Ethan Klein doesn't believe in anything. That's the most important thing to remember, chat. He doesn't believe in anything. Even fair use, the thing that he got famous for crying about, he doesn't believe in it either. Bitch made loser.
Aggressive about this. And then we're seeing some who are not. There are some who are there saying that it really appears that people are getting aroused. We will win. That, of course, is in the Senate. But in the House, this is just on Friday. I want you to think about what you would do if you were Hakeem Jeffries. And let's just keep it to...
まずはわしの新たな憲政の要である江戸から始める。築き上げるは戦のない太平の世じゃ。死人に先々の話をして何とする。
If you haven't watched Shogun, I would recommend that you mute for the next 30 seconds.
Messaging, right? Let's just keep it to messaging for a moment. And let's be clear. You don't have a majority in the House. Republicans...
Mike, I hope you saw that Ethan reportedly overshared and said really dumb shit about the lawsuit yesterday, and it was really hilarious. Honestly, I should do like an H3 snark day. It would be kind of funny. I'm not really an H3 snark user though. I don't, I like, whenever I'm looking into Ethan stuff, I think H3 snark has good, it seems to be a really well-run community. It seems like when somebody's really unhinged and weird, they kind of moderate that person and they keep the stuff to really substantive. The H3 snark subreddit seems like a good place to keep on top of most of what Ethan is doing, from a more skeptical position. The thing about Ethan Klein is like, you can't change somebody like that. You can't change somebody like that. And what I mean by that is his worldview is not something that he arrived at through rational inquiry and thought. He was basically accepted certain things as true as a starting point, right? What Israel is doing to the Palestinians is justified, is his starting point. There's no evidence or nothing you could show him that's going to shake him off that. That's the center of his worldview. That's the center of his life, his family life. It's the core of his being. That's why he blew up everything that was working for him, is because it was attacking that fundamental first principle pillar, which is you could be a progressive supporter of apartheid. That is Ethan Klein's position. Even that concept of being a progressive is going to fall away in defense of apartheid. Eventually, he's going to do the thing where he's like, I'm not a progressive because they support terrorism. All progressives support terrorism. The left needs to be controlled. The left needs to be banned. They're spreading dangerous ideas. Like, that's his... honestly, I would be surprised if he didn't already say that. Like, I don't watch Ethan Klein because I don't think, you know, a comedy podcast that doesn't do comedy is a good use of your time. But I wouldn't be surprised if he started saying stuff like that. Dangerous ideas is where he's headed. Mike, if you were a president and had a trifecta, how would you combat the right-wing media? I would use the Sherman Antitrust Act to break up all the major media conglomerates. I would seize Twitter because it's owned by Saudi Arabia, and that's a national security risk. So I would nationalize Twitter. I would take away all of Fox's broadcast licenses because of the crimes they committed during the Dominion voting machine defamation situation. I would roll tanks into their headquarters and take them over on the air. Like, I take them off air, preferably at like 4 a.m. What else would I do? Yeah, Sinclair Media, obviously, I would also break up. But the thing about that is, when people hear me say that, they're like, "Oh, what do you hate? You hate free speech?" No, I hate propaganda for fascism. That's what I hate. They didn't let the Nazi newspapers keep publishing their shit after World War II. What do you think about think tanks like the Heritage Foundation? I would seize all their assets, and I would arrest all of their employees for crimes against humanity.
Republicans have a very, very slim minority. Majority. They're very, very slim, but they do have the majority. You don't have majority in the Senate by a fairly significant margin.
Yeah, but they could do this thing called filibustering, Sam Cedar. They could do this thing called filibuster everything. Not give unanimous consent. They can require quorum calls. They can prevent speeches being done when no one's in the chamber. They can deny... It could deny a quorum selectively. They can, just do maximum resistance like the Republicans are willing to do.
Senate. You don't have the presidency. You can make things very difficult, though.
See, the Democrats preserve the filibuster so they could never use it. Yeah, I see that, RK
Or you could, communicate to the American public. There's a lot of things at your disposal. I don't know how effective they're going to be, but what is it that you're trying to do at this point? Trying to get the American public on your side, right? Make them feel like you're going to fight for them. Even if you're going to lose, you're going to fight. We're going to go down with a fight. I mean, how American is that, right? The idea of, well, we're going to put up a fight. We're going to die trying. With all the platitudes. Well, here is House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who, remind you, just like, what was it, 2 weeks ago, said, President tweeted out, presidents come and go, but God is always on the throne. So
I am so comforted by that.
When it comes to the next key leverage point you all have would be one of the things the government shut down.
Pause it for a second. I just want you to know that he's standing in front of a placard that says, "How is this lowering costs?" ? And there's tear sheets.
Oh, this party is really sensitive to the effects people have on costs. It would have been nice a year ago, but
this is okay. Understand what's the message here? Let's just break down. What does that say? How is this lowering costs? First off, there's no declarative statement, right? It's a cutesy question. How is this lowering costs? Okay, so
by the way, chat, this is who the majority report was screaming at me. We got to vote blue no matter who for. Actually, what's really interesting, and this is a project for somebody, Mike, have you seen this Destiny clip?
What you're doing?
No, but I'll watch it just for you, buddy. It's not working. That's a shame. Anyway, no, nothing of value.
So he wants to know which part of Cuba.
Oh yeah, we've watched that already. That's old.
Doing when you say that is you're saying, okay, we took Trump seriously.
Hakeem's popularity is going to what popularity? There is no popularity. Hakeem Jeffries doesn't have any popularity. Hakeem Jeffries is Nancy Pelosi's handpicked successor. And you would know that if you've been watching my stream. If you watch my stream, you would know that Hakeem Jeffries is an anti-leftist handpicked by Nancy Pelosi to destroy the left. That's why he's the leader now. And the pathetic squad voted for him because they don't have anybody else. The progressives in Congress are a joke. Let's be honest. They're not a legitimate threat. They're not real. I mean, they're scared. They get into Congress and they're scared. And this is what happens when you are a junior member of the Democratic Party. They are just a rump. They don't do anything. Yeah, sure, they may, you get 100 of them to vote for Medicare for all or some fucking policy, but they don't have any power. The progressive electorate is also a joke. We're not a threat. We're a small minority. This is where you're wrong. The electorate is not where you get your power. Do you think that the most advanced and organized people are going to be voters? That's the great mass of the people. Of course, the great mass of the people are not ideologically. If the great mass of the people were leftist, we'd have a communist fucking revolution. What are you talking about? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, guys, we just need to get to the point where through education and live streams, 51% of people are going to become convinced communists. And then we'll vote in communist. Like, what are you talking about? Of course they're not. You talk to voters about material shit that will affect their lives and you deliver on that and they'll like you. And then you do the political organization around that popularity, around that trust. Like how you ever convince anybody of anything in the history of the fucking planet is you don't walk up to someone and go, sir, I'd like to have an ideological discussion with you about capitalism. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You have created for yourself an impossible task that is irrelevant in history. Do you think that before the communists in China launched their revolution, they had a poll that said 51% of Chinese people support communism? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, what is this liberal ass motherfucking bullshit? You think we're going to do, like, we're going to change the minds of everybody through, like, persuasion? Like, what is this? We already have the majority of people on most of our issues. 60% of people in Kansas vote on abortion. People talk about how much, 70% of the country likes labor unions and wants to join one. They support Medicare for all or healthcare being provided as a right by the government. Like, what more do you fucking want? They want us to end wars abroad. They want us to invest more at home. They want us to raise taxes on the rich. Like, what more do you want? You want them to agree to we need to have a majority of the polls on every single position by the ideologically unsophisticated regular person who doesn't know anything? I mean, half the people in here who watch politics every day fucking describe ideology in a precise way. No matter, and it is what it is. What the fuck are we talking about here? Is Trump the first alleged fascist to reduce the size of the federal government, giving more power to the states? I think one of the things I would say is that question is so far from like reality or an intelligent point that I can't believe you are saying it, because it's obvious you've never studied fascist Italy or fascist Germany. They did extensive privatizations in cooperation with the rich of the day. This is exactly on point for what fascists have always done. Like, what are you talking about? Secondly, he hasn't really... The stuff he's removed primarily has been stuff of the American state that, quite frankly, is used to protect you from criminal behavior. 3 senior Netanyahu aides indicted for witness intimidation in PM's corruption cases. Nice. Insane. My larger point that I would always like to make to everybody is just like, what do you expect is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? Like, we're going to have these conversations and we're all going to suddenly decide spontaneously that we all are going to march in perfect. Like, what are we going to do? No, this is not reality. Reality is you make a change in the law and you use that change in law to restructure society in your benefit. That is what Trump is doing. He is showing you what it looks like to exercise power in this country. I don't agree with most of what he does, but it is opening up the space of possibility in the future, because the more, I mean, you know, he's old. He's an old fucking guy. He's in his 80s, for God's sake. This is large. This was always going to happen, okay? We were always going to get a fascist. Be glad that it's Donald Trump at his second term in his 80s instead of someone else. And we're going to take our medicine. And then why are we going to take our medicine? Because leftists have said support Hakeem Jeffries and Joe Biden and, you know, Hillary Clinton. Why? Because we're lazy. And honestly, the left wing is pathetic in this country. It was easier just to say vote blue. I don't have to do anything. I told you to vote blue. I've constructed a mind palace for why voting blue is always correct. I don't have to do anything more because I voted blue. And if the Democrats don't do anything, well, they couldn't have done anything. That is half of the progressive movement right now. Pathetic. You're a moron. There'll be no shift to the left. It's Republicans and MAGA now. I don't think you understand how history works. I don't think you have a vision of the reality. There's a problem that people of middling intelligence have, which is that they look at something that's happening and they assume it's going to keep happening in the same way at the same intensity far into the future. Line is going up, line will continue to go up. Line is going down, line will continue to go down. The reality is what's going to happen is this. Go look at what was happening in America 100 years ago. In 1925, it was the Roaring 20s. You had Calvin Coolidge. We saw the exact same kind of environment where the Gilded Age of massive wealth inequality and power concentrating in the hands of Wall Street and the rich. And banks and corporate America were allowed to reign unrestrained. 3 years later, there was a mega massive crash that destroyed the American economy instead of spiraling into a depression. We are copying that model. Nobody in 1925 saw the New Deal coming. That is the reality. So right now, the time is obviously not ripe. The economy is still carrying on from the post-COVID recovery. Inflation is elevated, but not extreme. And the American people have just enough treats and just enough to get along. They can keep scraping. They haven't crashed into the wall at full speed. More and more people are getting stressed. More and more people are, near the end of their rope, but they're still grabbing onto the rope. It hasn't ended. There hasn't been that dramatic collapse. And there will be eventually another recession, another contraction, another fuck up. Because the more they strip away the guardrails on the economy and on these corporations, they're eventually going to crash the goddamn economy. And if you think Harris was elected, that wouldn't happen. I think if Harris was elected, it would have been funneled even further into the right. I think there's one thing about American politics, which is the voters blame the party in power, whether it's that party's fault or not. So, I mean, I think if Kamala Harris had been elected, the Democratic Party might have disintegrated outright. And that might have been a good thing, honestly. I just worry that Donald Trump would have been too old and it would have been put into the hands of J.D. Vance directly, or somebody who was, somebody who was ideologically even worse than Trump. After 2008, there was no movement to the left. That's because Barack Obama didn't do anything to make people's lives better, dumbass. How old were you in 2008? Be honest. How old were you in 2008? Be honest. The recovery from the recession, the Great Recession, was the slowest recovery in American history because Barack Obama went into office and he did austerity. And then he did Obamacare, which, by the way, is a right-wing health insurance industry giveaway that took years and years and years to even kick in at all. The only good part of it that was left-wing in any way was the expansion of Medicaid. That took years and years, and it was optional because of the Supreme Court. Barack Obama was a fucking loser, and he did jack shit. And that's why there was a right-wing backlash. Because just like with Joe Biden, there was a huge backlash against the right. The Democrats get into power, and what did they do? Status quo, austerity, bullshit. People will tell you that Barack Obama and Joe Biden were progressive for this country. And those are exactly the type of people that you need to throw as far away from power as you possibly can. Barack Obama and Joe Biden were disastrous failures. Do you know how I know? Because they handed the keys to the White House to Donald fucking Trump twice.
When he said he was going to lower costs. And you guys took Trump seriously when he was going to lower costs. Now, like Matt said, there was sort of like the Democrats were saying, like, the inflation's not as real as you say it is. So there's a sort of like an ambivalent mixed message there. But
wow, I can't believe they failed.
How is this lowering costs? And then there's Trump's tariffs threaten job losses, blah, blah, blah. There's all sort of examples of what the press has written. Who is this for? Is it for the media? Why does it have to be, how is this lowering costs? Why can't it be, this is not lowering costs?
Or Trump's.
I mean,
that shit doesn't work. And this is my problem with Majority Report. It doesn't matter what slogan they put on some fucking particle board. Hakeem Jeffries is doing shit to aid and abet Donald Trump. There is no Democratic Party whip. There is no, I will do obstruction. I'm going to make Donald Trump a fucking failure. I'm going to fight tooth and nail to sabotage everything I can. There is a, we'll vote for your pills. We'll vote for your nominees. You know that Donald Trump has the highest confirmation rate of cabinet appointees in American history for a president? The Democratic Party has done less than nothing to block Trump. The only successful person they have blocked is Matt Gaetz, who is literally credibly accused of hiring underage prostitutes, or another way of saying that is committing sex crimes for money.
I'm just like giving it like this is like I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt here that the best message is to say, never mind that what Trump is doing is wholly illegal and effed up in and of itself. We're not going to address that directly. We're going to address the fact that he's not doing what he said, and we're not even going to address that directly. We're just going to put it in a question like, hey.
Let's be glib about it and hope.
Sarcasm.
This is what I was saying earlier about the complete ineptitude with the media environment, which is that you have to break through the noise when there's so much information out there, and it's on cable news, or it's on TikTok, or it's on Instagram, or it's on whatever. Like, what are you going to do to take a message that elevates, like Trump does with his idiocy, that cuts through the noise, that rises to the top in this situation? And just asking a little glib question, like you're, I don't know, like a podcaster, or it's silly. It's not messaging.
And even if you like I'm willing to cut them slack. Like, it's tough to break through. But I'm just saying that if you're going to, what is the message? Like this is like you have to take 3 or 4 steps to understand what they're even talking about. And what is it that they're mad at? They're mad that Trump hasn't lowered inflation. Are they really mad that Trump hasn't lowered inflation? What
do I think of Trump dissolving the aid money for the CIA since they're so corrupt? Honestly, I just tweeted it. This is what I think. This is what I tweeted. Somebody said, the CIA is not anti-communist, LOL. And I said, damn, they caught us. The socialist movement worldwide would be crushed if they abolished the CIA. Okay, I have a serious question for you, chatters. How many of you think the CIA is bad but necessary? Raise your hand if you think the CIA is bad, but we got to have the CIA. There was no the CIA was created after World War II. The CIA was created after FDR was dead. Does it surprise you that we haven't had another FDR since the CIA was created? We should abolish the CIA completely. Why don't you think we need the CIA? Because the CIA does not do anything positive for the United States of America. The CIA is a fascist Gestapo organization that interferes in the politics of the world, try to prevent anything that could uplift humanity. Why? Because the CIA operates as the foot soldiers for American capital. And any country that wants to raise their minimum wage is costing American capitalists money. And therefore, the CIA feels emboldened to interfere with that country. And this doesn't just happen to the third world. It happened to Australia. A Swedish prime minister was assassinated We've done it to Japan. We do it to Mexico. This is not just third world shit. This is every other country in the world has massive crimes being committed against it by the United States. The CIA it was created to kill people like me and you. If you consider yourself to be a social democrat or even a social liberal, the CIA murders people like you all around the world nonstop. There will probably never be another legitimate election again. Why do people say shit like this? Give up! You would never were in the fight in the first place. Just get up. Give up. Give the fuck up. Move on. Go learn how to sew or something. You goddamn liberal. You never fought in the first place. Go give up. Go find another hobby. You never read much anyway. I don't even understand what you like. Your worldview, and you know this, is not based off of reason. It's not based on considered thought. It's something you have picked up from the social milieu you're in and whatever the algorithm put in front of you. You don't know anything. You're not educated. You never got involved in politics. What the fuck do you know about shit? You don't know anything. Why are you even here? Just stop yourself and go learn something. Go take a hike. Play your favorite video game. Learn how to cook. I don't know. Do anything. Make a friend. You were the one who endorsed Trump. I never endorsed Trump, you dumb sack of shit. I specifically said, this is how Kamala Harris can win. And she refused to do all the things I said she needed to do. And she lost Michigan in a disastrous landslide because the people did care about the stuff I said they were cared about. I said she shouldn't campaign with Liz Cheney and she should go after Joe Biden. I was there. I was right. I said Biden should drop out in 2022. Where were you in 2022? Show me your post in 2022 saying that Joe Biden shouldn't run for re-election. Where were you? You are the stupid sack of shit. I'm the one who's constantly right. Where do you get off? It's like, Mike, you were so correct about everything. That means that I could be mad at you for being right. Do you think I'm God? Do you think I could dictate political outcomes? Because if I could dictate political outcomes, I could tell you run the thing right now. You wouldn't be speaking about politics.
Americans who are...
Mike, if I had just lied to my audience about how great Kamala Harris is, she would have won. If everybody was just quieted down who had any criticism of the Democrats, if everybody was forced to shut up, she would have won. She wouldn't have won. She wouldn't have won. If every single person who criticized her from the left was quieted down and banned off every platform and shut up, she still would have lost because she was a dud. She was an anti-democratic dud who couldn't win a goddamn thing. You want to win a majority of votes? You need to run a campaign. She was incompetent. She couldn't run a campaign. They were annoying Hassan's chat too. As a political pundit with a ton of influence, there's a lot of things you can do to help organize and stand against the fascist coup. We are. Who do you think is, you dumb piece of shit? You liberal scum are attacking the left and trans people and immigrants. You're voting for the Lincoln Riley Act. You're voting to appoint all of Trump's cabinet nominees. You talk drama all day, you little bit. Well, I'm talking about politics right now, and you're trying to say that I talk drama. What the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck is he talking about? Okay, he's convinced me I should talk about drama for a second, chat. He's convinced me. I want to show you somebody who's an actual scumbag. I have another tweet going, starting to pop off called "This Dude Stinks,"
which is insane. It's insanely, totally fabricated.
Insane.
I was talking to Ela. She went to, like, briefly before this hernia surgery she was due for. She literally went back home to like Venezuela. Took 3 weeks.
Very good golf.
It's just, I don't know why it's being provoked so much lately. Which is
Dan, such a leftist, man. How dare you?
It's insanely.
How dare you have a vacation, and how dare you need hernia surgery? It's either or, okay? You either have a vacation or you get hernia surgery. You can't have both. Anyway, back to we need to get back to Rodeo Drive, where the locals shop.
Dealing with egg prices.
What's with Ethan's twitches? I think he has Tourette syndrome, right? Like that's what he says. He has Tourette syndrome, right? But does he? I mean, like, I haven't seen a diagnosis, so I don't know, because, you know, he questions this lady's hernia surgery, right? So I don't know if, you know, maybe he has, you know, Tourette's, right? Like, that would be treating him the way he treats others, right? Now, we're not going to do that because we're better than him.
Need Congress to remind them of that? Like, what is the message here? It's unclear to me. But let's go to Hakeem Jeffries. He's being asked a question here. Go back a little bit so we can hear the question.
I'm surprised Dan turns out to be such a yes man. There is a saying, Upton Sinclair, very simple. It is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it. There you go. That's Dan. That's the crew. It's very easy to understand. They're never going to do the right thing. They're never going to, you're never going to convince them with arguments. They're getting paid to be yes men. They're being paid to be the servants of Ethan Klein. Like, are you guys surprised? Maybe somewhere in his heart of hearts, Dan has some, like, integrity, but every day that goes by, he sells a little bit more of it. And Dan, I want you to know it's not too late. You guys could quit. You could come out and you could say all the evil shit that he's done. You could whistle blow, and everybody would rush to embrace you. And I think he knows that. This is one of the things that really frustrates me is my enemies know I'm a good person. This is the thing that's really gross. You want to hear something that really really fucks with me? All my enemies know I'm a good person because as soon as they need my help, they rush into my arms, literally. Every single time, these people they'll attack me for years. And then the moment they need help, they'll run to me. It happens all the time. And it's like one of those things where it's like, I'm going to keep being the same person, but like, it's hard to understand. It really is hard to understand why people are the way they are. Like, it's just like, you knew the whole time that you know, what you were saying was bullshit. And the moment you need help, you're rushing over to me and you trust me completely. It's just crazy. It feels good to embrace your former enemies. You and I are built different. You and I are built different. Who am I referring to? It happens so much. Are you kidding me? It happens so much. Are you kidding me? There's like 10 people I could name. Say what person? Nah. Because I'm a better person. It's like, I don't reveal people's private information. I don't punish people for doing the right thing. Even though they were doing the wrong thing a lot of time for a long time, I'm not going to punish them for doing the right thing, right? I'm going to realize that this is what makes me a good person. What makes me a good person is I'll take the slings and arrows, and then when you change, I will welcome you in, and I will forgive you. That's what makes me a good person. It's not easy to be a good person. It's hard to be a good person. If you find it easy to be a good person, you're actually not a good person. You actually have not been challenged. A good person is someone who does good things even though it sucks, even though it's hard, even though it requires sacrifices, even though it requires ego to be damaged a bit. There's people I'm protecting who are pieces of shit to me, but that is wrong. It would be wrong to me for me to become like them and harm them and throw them under the bus to protect myself. There are people that I have protected for a very, very long time because I think that's the right thing to do. Mike's a pretty heavy / sad news. They killed the Duolingo bird? What? Okay, thank you for that link. Appreciate. Back to the Democrats being pathetic losers.
The next key leverage point you all have would be one of the things the government shut down. To what extent are Democrats willing to withhold votes? Your argument about the mandate withstanding, but withhold votes to avoid a government shutdown, and what do you need in exchange? In particular, when it comes to, do you see it as an opportunity to try to stop Musk or
I appreciate the question, Kevin, but I'm trying to figure out what leverage we actually have. What leverage do we have? Republicans have repeatedly lectured America. They control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. It's their government. What leverage do we have? We are going to try to find bipartisan common ground.
Are you effing
on any issue?
kidding?
We'll work with anyone in this town to get things done for the American people.
I saw a first couple minutes of this, so I posted, yeah, this was my main problem with the theory of rewarding the anti-Democratic Party for thumbing its nose at progressives. Vote blue no matter who led us to this point. And I've been saying that to Sam Cedar for 4 years now, or 5 years now, where I'm just like, I'm not against working in coalition with somebody, but I have to be working in coalition, not just hanging out as a camp follower, not somebody who, you know, provides services for the people in the camp. Like, I actually need to be represented. And the Democratic Party does not represent progressives. It does not represent the center left. The Democratic Party is the corporate conservative party. That is the reality. The right wing, the Republican Party, is the reactionary party. There is no left wing in America. And if you say vote to the Democrats or use the Democratic Party, you are empowering something that is profoundly unpopular. And people are realizing it. And this is the thing that's happening. The reason why the Democratic Party is now at 36% approval rating and declining is because people are realizing it. And there's nobody stepping up to lead. Bernie Sanders, step up. You made a documentary about Eugene Debs. And you're going to go down in history as the man who refused to step up when he was needed. The man who refused to take on the Democratic Party when it was needed. You should have ran in 2020. Excuse me. You should have ran in 2024. You should have primaried Joe Biden. I don't give a fuck that you're too old. I don't give a fuck that you're too old. Who gives a shit? Throwing your reputation to defend these people is fucking worthless. Bernie destroyed his movement by saying Biden is his best friend. Oh, absolutely correct. If you want to know why the left in America is crushed, it's because Bernie Sanders was too fucking weak. He was a nice guy to Hillary Clinton. I don't care about your emails. What the fuck are you talking about? Bernie Sanders should have gone up there and said, she is irresponsible. She's being investigated for a felony. It's too much of a risk to take her against Donald Trump. She's been involved in a myriad scandals going back decades. She served on Walmart's corporate board. She is against you. She voted for the Iraq war, and now she supported regime change in Libya. She is the same as a Republican, and those goddamn emails are not going away. He should have said that. He should have went after her, but he was a bitch. He was a pussy. I don't want to do a negative campaign. And what was the main thing that defeated Hillary Clinton? The goddamn emails. The emails story didn't go away because Bernie Sanders told Democratic primary voters to not consider it. It became the reason she lost the election. That is Bernie Sanders' fault. Bernie Sanders' fault is not properly vetting Hillary Clinton. No, because he would have sounded too much like Trump. Who gives a shit?
To lower the high cost of living, secure the border,
okay. All right, listen.
And keep...
Okay. So, I mean, this is so muddled. It's unbelievable. The question was, you've talked about your next point of leverage, which is the government shutdown. This is happening when? In March? Like the continuing resolution goes to what, March 7th or something? Somewhere in the first week of March. Republicans have a 4-person majority in the House. There is every reason to believe that they cannot agree amongst themselves.
Chat, the reason why the Republicans have a majority in the House, and I want to explain something very simple to you if you're new to politics. The reason why they have a majority in the House is because the Democrats don't gerrymander states that they control the way that Republicans gerrymander states they control. Republicans gerrymander the shit out of Ohio. They gerrymander the shit out of Texas. They gerrymander the shit out of their states. Meanwhile, there are like a half a dozen. There's like what? How many Republicans out of California? 12? 9 Republicans. 9 Republicans in California. Why? There should be 0. If the Democrats gerrymandered California like the Republicans gerrymandered Texas, there should be 0 Republicans. Or maybe 2. Which, by the way, just so you know, all they would have had to do is gerrymander 2 of those Republicans and the House would have flipped. How the fuck is this a thing? Gerrymandering's legal. Why aren't the Democrats doing it? Well, Mike, they don't want to do gerrymandering because gerrymandering is wrong. So what we should do is you gerrymander the most you can, and we won't ever gerrymander. We're going to show that we're good people. The same thing in New York. New York has a whole bunch of Republicans because why? The New York Democrats want to keep the Republicans strong. They gerrymander to make the Republicans stronger. It's literally the meta. When you don't follow the meta, you lose. Exactly. Exactly. Can you imagine? Like, that's the Democrats. I'm sorry, I don't want to play this meta comp because I think it's cheesy. Bronze ass mentality. Bronze ass mentality. The delegation consists of 38 members with 25 Republicans and 13 Democrats in Texas. Yeah, they gerrymandered the fuck out of Texas. You know, there's a lot of Democrats in Texas that are highly concentrated. They do everything they can to get that 25. Do you think it's 25-13 by accident? Electoralists are constitutionally capable of gerrymandering this. That's why they're electoralists. No, they aren't. They do it in Illinois. Illinois gerrymandered the fuck out of itself. Why do you think the New England Patriots won so many Super Bowls? The New England Patriots won all those Super Bowls because they cheated, or they went all the way up to the line of cheating. In fact, they won Super Bowls where they got caught cheating and they got to keep the Super Bowl, but they lost a first-round draft pick. How many of you would give up a first-round draft pick to win the Super Bowl? If you're not raising your hand, you're not a sports ball fan because you're a dumb fuck. Of course you would. And when we go back in history, do you know what people say? Tom Brady is the GOAT. They don't say, the New England Patriots cheated with, the way they played contact off the line, the way they interfered with wide receivers on every play. That was cheating. Oh, the way they secretly recorded the practices and the signals of the other team, that was cheating. The way they pumped the deflated balls, deflated footballs, the way they pumped in crowd noise, the way they cheated and they won the fucking game. And when you look back at history, do you know what you see? You see Hall of Famers. Because if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And you know what should stop you from cheating? I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you in the game of power. You know what you stop cheating you is when it hurts you. When the cheating results in more damage being done to you. And this is when you are in a situation of the state of nature, which is a struggle of all against all. Let's be honest. When you're in war, in the Democratic Party, listen, I want to be able to come to a compromise where we don't have gerrymandering. I want to live in a system that we don't have that. But the reality is, if you want to get to that system, you don't get to that system by surrendering and losing and rewarding the cheaters. And that's what the Democrats have done. They have rewarded the cheaters. Republicans play constitutional hardball and steal a Supreme Court seat, and the Democrats let them. Republicans play hardball and gerrymander themselves into majority, and the Democrats let them. That is called winning. Cheaters cheat, winners win. That's true. Losers cheat, winners win. Okay, when I say cheat, I'm not talking about like, there's a certain amount of cheating, okay? There is gamesmanship and angle shooting, and then there's outright cheating, right? If you are like, if you're committing like outright crimes that you're caught at, that would be too risky and too damaging, right? But if you're following within the rules, but you're taking what you could do within the rules all the way to the extreme, that's called playing the game correctly. And if you don't like the way the game is being played because the meta is bad, then people change the rules of the game. But you change the rules of the game by exploiting the meta. You don't get the rules of the game changed by ignoring the meta and losing every one of your fucking games. You exploit the meta until the meta changes. This is basic shit. Angle shooting is just scummy. Okay, what's the difference between angle shooting and being a dope? I'll give you an example of something that you might consider an angle shoot. Say you get to a showdown in poker and you say, all I got is a bottom pair. And the other guy mucks his hand and the other guy mucks his hand and reaches for the pot and says, oh yeah, like he puts his hand down in the muck and he says, oh, I have two pair. And he goes to scoop the pot. Guess what happens? Pot goes your way because he mucked his fucking cards. That's the rules, bitch. Don't muck your fucking cards if you want the pot. And if you're one of those people, you should say to him, hey man, you mucked your cards. Sorry. That's the best way for him to learn his lesson. It's not a scummy thing to do. That's the rules of the fucking game. Now, an angle shoot is all sorts of things that you can do that are technically within the rules to induce people to make mistakes. And I think it's a scumbag thing to do. And the reason why I think it's a scumbag thing to do is because of the larger game of poker. The larger game of poker, and if you want to understand how poker pros think, I'm going to tell you. The larger game of poker is getting losing poker players to play with you longer. That is the meta of poker. So I don't do angle shooting against weaker players because I don't want them to feel bad. I want them to have fun. I want them to feel good about playing poker with me while they're losing. That's the greater meta. Now, if you're a dirtbag angle shooter scumbag who makes it uncomfortable to play with, the person's going to leave. You may win that pot, but you're going to lose the long term. Obligatory Toady G clip. Oh, yeah. And politics isn't something low stakes like a Sunday league game. Politics is literally life and death for millions of people. It's life and death for our species. And the Democrats are not gerrymandering California. Climate change is supposed to be an existential threat to our society, and the Democrats want to have extra Republican members from California and New York. And so they have a 4-member majority. And so the Democrats can say, they have a trifecta. They have a trifecta because the Democrats are not playing the game.
Themselves as to how to deal with the budget. And by not approving a budget, the government would shut down. Now, Jeffries wants to make it like the Democrats, we're not part of that process. Now, they're going to withhold votes. I think that's the plan. But he doesn't want to come off as like we're willing to shut down the government over it. It's not we don't have the power to do this. And he's saying we're willing to work with the Republicans to enhance their agenda of strengthening the border and to, lower the costs for Americans and whatnot. Things are so muddled because he's not indicating to the American public there's something extraordinary that's going on right now. Like, they have completely foregone the entire system. Like, why do we need a budget?
Yeah.
This is the question, is like, you know what? Like, they want us to participate this, but why do we need a budget? Why is even Congress, what I'm unclear of, like, we're not clear why Mike Johnson would even bring a budget to the House.
Exactly. If
Donald Trump and Elon Musk have the ability to decide on their own what gets spent where. If that's the case, what are we doing here? I mean, the Republicans don't need our votes. They don't even need their own votes because they can just say to Musk and Trump that they can do this. Like, there's no
urgency.
This press conference could have been given at any time the Democrats were not in office. Were not in the majority. Point out to me one thing where these words could not be replayed in 2004, in 2014, in 2018. Like, walk me through this or I should say 2022. Walk me through this where what Hakeem Jeffries is saying couldn't be applied to any of those other things. And if the leader of the Democrats in the House doesn't have the ability to even attempt to articulate, there's something different going on right now. When the vice president of the United States is saying, like, well, I don't know if the courts really have any say over this. I mean, what's the point?
He's not communicating any urgency. He's not talking about the brazen lawlessness. I mean, Trump is already, and Musk, defying these court orders that is saying, you're not allowed to do this. Trump is violating a core tenet of the Constitution, not even an amendment. Like, from the outset, Congress has the power of the purse, and once a bill is signed into law, the president has to faithfully execute it. And Trump is violating that in the first month less than.
The people who are on the left who are attracted to work in the electoral sphere are only interested in the maintenance of the electoral status quo. As such, they will never violate norms because maintaining the norms is their primary political project. I don't think that's true of everyone, but I definitely think it is true of a lot of people. There is this kind of apolitical politics in the Democratic Party, which is like, I just have to do my homework and then I'll be rewarded with elections. Like, one of my least favorite things, and I'm going to say something that's going to piss a lot of people off, but I don't care because I've actually knocked tens of thousands of doors and you haven't, is the obsession with things like door knocking and phone calls and texts, because it's not fun to do. It's like doing your math homework, right? It's an unpleasant thing to do. It takes a lot of time. And it feels like you're doing something that is going to impact stuff, when in reality, that is like the final step of a political project. It has now been moved to the front of the political project, which is like, oh, we just need to do more door knocking. We just need to do more phone calls. We just need to do more texts. And it's like, those things are annoying to be on the other end of. It's annoying when someone comes to your door and you don't know who they are. It's annoying when you get a text from somebody who's not a friend or relative. It's annoying to have your phone ring. Those are annoyances. We don't like those things. But instead of that being a realization that people have for politics, which is, I'm not going to be the annoying piece of shit botherer. I want to build something that people are a part of, right? And they're attracted to. That is what political movements do. That's why Donald Trump won. Donald Trump won not by building a grassroots door knocking campaign. Donald Trump won because he went around and he did his dumb fuck rallies for every knuckle dragging troglodyte in every fucking backwoods dipshit county and told them that the racist, bigoted ideas were common sense and flattered them and brought them together for a group party and celebration. And it made it to be a part of a movement that people spent their money and they voluntarily were involved in. That's what happened with Barack Obama. People look at Barack Obama in 2008 and be like, wow, look at all the door knocking and phone calls. The reason why he got that is because he had so many volunteers who were bought into the project. It wasn't that the volunteers created the votes by doing the door knocking and phone calls. The volunteers were a sign of a attractive, healthy movement. And this is what people don't understand about politics, is they think that if the more I do annoying, bullshit, boring stuff, the more homework I do, the better grade I'm going to get on the test. The test being, of course, the election. That is not how it works. You win when you are attractive and you're drawing people in. And there's a lot of ways to draw people in. Nah, goddamn, nah, you are the reason, fucking dumb. Okay, Marlboro Steve. What can you make any kind of point? Please, for the love of Christ, make a point. People on the right liked Donald Trump because he said they were right and he fed them raw red meat, and they were having fun. Biggest scam is voting for someone who only gives a shit about becoming a trillionaire and about himself. I mean, yeah, it's a scam. Of course it's a scam. They're right-wingers. Of course it's a scam. But the point is that it was fun to be part of the MAGA movement. There's one thing about MAGA movement people, is they're always laughing and smiling and enjoying themselves. Go watch any type of hogwatch. They're having a blast. They may be dumb as fuck. They may be politically illiterate, but they're having fun. They're part of something. And that is what made Barack Obama popular. He was fun to be around. It was fun. You need to have a movement that is built on something. And it doesn't always have to be good emotions. It could be anger. You can be angry as your primary motivator for getting involved in politics. But then when you get there, it should be part of something that makes you feel something greater than yourself. And here we go, chat. New Michigan Senate election poll, Mike Rogers, 47%, Pete Buttigieg, 41%. The Hutch, the Destiny, the Hall Monitor Democrats are going to destroy this country. I think of Pete Buttigieg as the ideal candidate for somebody like Hutch. And he is unelectable. He is an unelectable scumbag. Wait, what is exactly your point? No, let's see how much more money for transgender operations overseas. I personally, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it to make a bridge with me and you. The only reason USAID does that is to preserve American power. You don't seem to know that, which is fine. In fact, I agree with you that we should abolish USAID. We should abolish American foreign aid. No more money for Israel. No more money for Egypt. No more money for Pakistan. No more money for Libya. No more money for Jordan. No more money for Abu Dhabi. No more money for Saudi Arabia. No more money for Kyrgyzstan. No more money for Pakistan. No more money. Let's see. What else are we giving money to right now? Georgia. No more money for Ukraine. I agree with you.
Of his presidency. So the point is like, he is correct.
Support billionaires burning our tax dollars. I think you think I'm a liberal, which is very funny.
Correct that they are in the minority. They're in the minority in the House. They're in the minority in the Senate. But politics isn't just saying, well, this is the reality, and posing a question, an open-ended question. Hey, everybody, why don't you figure it out? Like, hey, we're not going to message on immigration, we're going to do a little trick where it'll be parliamentary procedure that we hinge our immigration policy on in 2024 that, you know, Trump, we tried to fix the border and Trump killed it. That makes him look more powerful. In the same, it makes him look like the president when he wasn't even in office. He looks like he can kill a bill when he's just the candidate. Same thing in this situation here. What do you expect us to do? We're in the minority. I don't know, act like you want to wield power and act like you can. Because you can say, like, we are limited, but we are trying very hard right now to make sure that Donald Trump and Elon Musk don't take and steal from the American public. Congress has decided on where our budget is going to go. Not an unelected billionaire who can go in and comb through with his little interns. That's what you say, as opposed to just whining and being on the back foot. You reorient the message to look like you are taking action, even if you know that you can't.
Does he even mention anything that's going on? Like, I mean, honestly, like if you had told me that, he was the minority leader in 2022, and they asked him this question. Oh, okay. What would be different?
I'll wait to hear why he was in Northern California last week. But go ahead, Bradley.
In this town, to get things done for the American people, to lower the high cost of living, secure the border, and keep our communities safe while defending dreamers, farm workers, and families at the same time. We have repeatedly made that clear. But Republicans have decided to go it alone. That's what the budget reconciliation process is all about.
Budget reconciliation. Listen, yes, I get all that. But why not? Why not put them on the hot seat for what's going on today? You don't need to explain the reconciliation stuff to a bunch of Washington reporters. Who are you communicating to? Who is this for?
You know what?
What is going on right now?
Yeah.
That is relevant to the. This is so blinkered. It is fascinating. Like if in 6 months, all of these the Musk and Trump have decided we're not going to listen to the courts. We're just going to do this, and then we're going to move forward, and then they'll take another step. If that happens, in 10 years from now, somebody's looking back at this speech, they're going to be like, wait a second, this can't have been happening on February 10th. What's he talking about? He's talking about and I get it. I've heard this many, many times on both sides, and it's perfectly legitimate explanation of like reconciliation is showing they're not going to work across the aisle. We're here to be partners to get the work done for the American people. I know all this stuff. It is completely rote. It is like pull it up.
Hutch Dems will destroy the Democrats. That's good. That's actually like personally, I want to see people like Hutch gain more and more power at the Democratic Party, because the reality is that the Democratic Party is irredeemable. The Democratic Party has to be destroyed. Just like the Whig Party was destroyed. Like, we need a rupture. And somebody like Hutch or Pete Buttigieg, they will destroy it faster. Like, the more the Democrats lose, the more likely we can form a Labor Party. America needs a Labor Party. Like, legitimately, a Labor Party, a workers' party. And the Democrats are just not that. What they are, the corporate Democrats, and they have a progressive faction that they have contained. And it's so thoroughly corrupted that basically if you win as a progressive, you are instantly into a kind of like constant threat of being primaried by AIPAC. And there's no way to do any like political work because the Democratic Party is constantly scheming to replace you with some sort of corrupt machine Democrat. You're basically you're putting all this political effort, and then it's like, oh, what are you going to do? Vote against the Democrats when they're doing bad things? Well, if you vote against the Democrats, they spend $50 million saying that you're helping the Republicans. Meanwhile, they're absolutely going to Washington, D.C. and saying, we need a strong Republican Party. We need to work across the aisle. We need to not be obstructionists. We need to work with them for the American people. Crawling on their hands and knees to strip due process from people in America. Like, for example, the Lincoln Riley Act. stripping due process from illegal immigrants. Here's a problem. How do you know someone's an illegal immigrant? How do you know someone's an illegal immigrant? You have to prove they're an illegal immigrant, right? Not in the Lincoln Riley Act. Border Patrol agent can just designate you an illegal immigrant and get you deported. So you have no opportunity to prove that you're not an illegal immigrant. What if you get arrested by Border Patrol wrongfully? You're at the beach with your kids and your wallet is in the car, right? And a Border Patrol agent comes up to you and he arrests you and you say, I'm an American citizen. And he says, I didn't see any documentation on your person when I arrested you. You're an illegal immigrant. And they deport you. They sent you to an ICE facility. You say, I'm not an illegal immigrant. Do you ever have to have due process of law? Nope. That is exactly the point. Is the Democrats help destroy due process rights for people in America, including citizens. Because when you strip away human beings the right to due process within a country, you strip it from people that are innocent. That's why due process exists. Due process does not exist to be annoying for good-hearted bureaucrats. It's to make sure that you're using the state on people that are actually guilty, that are actually the person you're targeting. And the Democrats, instead of saying this is a violation of our most basic fundamental rights to ensure that innocent people are not targeted, they said, ooh, we have to look like we're doing something. Let us work with the Republicans and pass their fascist bill.
In the handbook, page 37, reconciliation. What do you say? They want to go it alone. They don't want to work together. They're not going to be able to. And if they're going to go it alone, except for the part where they're shutting down agencies based upon zero authority. You're not going to talk about that when the question of leverage happens?
No.
It's just bizarre.
No, because also they act like they have no agency over public opinion or no ability to change it. That's the other frustrating thing. We had someone on the IM's commentary. I can't imagine Mitch McConnell ever spoke like Jeffries just did at any point during Obama's tenure. You know why? Because Republicans have an understanding that they can create leverage by making, even if they don't have the numbers, they can make certain things politically toxic and then use those in negotiations by using the bully pulpit and aggressively going after their opponent. But Democrats like Jeffries go, well, what can we do? We'll just step aside and let them pick apart themselves. But like, we're in an extraordinary and in a bad way moment. He's not even, as you're saying, he's talking about this like it's any other day. And we have a coup in parts of the federal government by the richest man on the planet. And you could, and if he wants to use, again, the Doge stuff within the budget negotiations, that's what's been reported. That makes sense as leverage and to get what they want, right? But you know how you increase your that leverage? By informing the American public about what the Republicans are doing. It makes you more powerful, but they don't. My fear is that they don't want to be powerful, and my fear is that there's a lot of consensus within liberal elites right now that
This is what I've been saying to Majority Report for years. This is what I've been saying to them for years. Do you guys remember when I debated Sam Cedar on like vote blue no matter who before Joe Biden? I was like, I'm more concerned about the people that is going to be brought in with Joe Biden. Joe Biden is going to put in people that are focused on destroying the left and putting the left back. And that's exactly what happened. The number one achievement of the Democrats during Biden's administration was getting rid of multiple members of the squad. That was it. Through primaries by AIPAC superstars. That was the primary. And did Joe Biden do anything to disrupt that? No, because he loves AIPAC. So bringing in right-wing billionaire money into the Democratic Party is a win to him. The problem is Sam and Emma forget all this when we're doing elections. Oh, yeah. Yeah, don't worry. They'll tell you got to vote blue no matter what. Yeah, the deputy director has been put on administrative leave.
American public just has to go through this. And I'm really fear.
That's the case. It's like, I don't know that there's any way for them to stop this. But the point is, if we're going to go through this regardless, which is quite possible, the question is, do you want people to go through this without any understanding of what's happening and without in creating a vacuum so that the same people who are doing this can jump in and redefine, like, why doesn't your Social Security check show up? Social Security checks don't show up because Social Security is bad.
Because they don't want to make a positive case. They want the pain to happen, and then they can go back to business as usual. That's what they hope.
As opposed to them going like, you know what they're doing right now? They're going to cut the Social Security Administration, and this is going to inhibit your checks. So when those checks don't show up, there's a story and a narrative that has already been created so that people can understand the reality that they're experiencing. And no one is out there going like, really hope these guys, I just can't believe the Republicans are going to do reconciliation again. That just seems so uncooperative. Like, why can't we join together? Like, who is advising these people? Like, who are they talking to?
Who are they talking to? Who was Hakeem Jeffries talking to last week? He was talking to Jewish groups, talking about how Sinwar is dead and we did all this stuff. And then later in the week, he was in Northern California with this Politico article. Hakeem Jeffries met privately with Silicon Valley donors in a bid to mend fences. So one thing we can thank Hakeem Jeffries for.
Pop that story up, because my favorite is what the fence that has been broken.
Yeah. But the thing is like Hakeem Jeffries proves that this is not a generational thing. This is a corruption issue, and we're going to have to face this head on.
Except how are we going to face it head on? Like, you know, when people like me get trashed for saying this stuff before the election, right? Like, I got trashed by people for saying this was true prior to November. Was Hakeem Jeffries not corrupt in November? Were the Democrats not supporting Israel lock, stock, and barrel? Was I not correct the entire fucking time when I said we have to stand up to these people?
He's not going to get better. He's not going to get better at this.
Scroll down.
He's paid not to get better. He's paid to not get better. Hakeem Jeffries is there because he's corrupt. He is the guy who collects bribes for Wall Street. That's the same thing with Chuck Schumer. Why do you think Chuck Schumer's the leader? Because he collects bribes from Wall Street. And he distributes it to the Democratic Party machine in D.C. and Northern Virginia. And they soak up billions of dollars and enrich themselves. It's just graft. It's just low-level, venal graft.
My favorite part of this article was, how do we, okay. There's a significant fear that these tech folks who have been with us for a long time will say, F it, we're going with the other guys.
That already happened.
Yeah. These donors are also pissed watching former and current colleagues here have unlimited unchecked power and getting richer off of this, and they're not.
Wait, hold on. There's Silicon Valley billionaires that aren't getting more rich right now? I see that there's a lot that are getting rich right now, and that makes me feel okay. But then there's some that are associated with the Democratic Party who aren't in the in-group right now, looting our federal government, and they're not getting rich right now?
How do those guys...
Jesus Christ.
How come when they're aligned with the Republicans, they get to run the entire government?
So the Democratic Party made these monsters in part by cozying up to Silicon Valley and elevating them over and over again. And yes, like specifically in the Obama administration, made them into these monsters. They're now these billionaire oligarchs, robber barons who, you know, unlike the Carnegies and stuff, like they actually barely do anything. They're just like venture capitalists or, you know, tech losers. Spreadsheet freaks. The Democrats enabled them, created this monster. They are now trying to take over the federal government with this like monarchical libertarian vision. Like the Coinbase guy is saying that we need to put the U.S. currency on the blockchain, and Hakeem Jeffries' response is not to say like, oh no, we need to like break these guys up, which is what Lena Khan was in the process of doing, and commit to that fully. It's to go back and say like, hey, maybe there are a few good guys that can help us out. It's crazy.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Schumer and Jeffries need to be pushed out.
Absolutely.
We need wartime leaders.
Yes.
I mean, John Miller. Do you remember when Uber was allowed to drop people off closer to the DNC than the cabs were? I forget which year this.
2016. Was that an important election?
That was in the, that was in Philly.
It's kind of a metaphor.
Yep.
That was like after Travis Kalanick was like outed for abusing like, I think, personnel data in Uber.
You know what would be funny? Going back and watching my debate with Sam Cedar again. Like, honestly, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, when you go back and you look at what I was saying at the time, especially right after the election, and how correct I was. I mean, how correct I was when I talked about it in 2020, how correct I was. You know, I talked about Hakeem Jeffries. I don't know if anybody has the ability to go through the MR shows and search all of their transcripts, but I've talked about Hakeem Jeffries on Majority Report. I'm like almost certain of it. I was a Sanders delegate that year. Uber cost $3 to take you to the convention from anywhere in the city. Yeah, does anybody think that was real? Does anybody think those Uber prices were real? It's kind of crazy how it's just nuts. It's just nuts how right I was the whole fucking time. God damn it, dude.
To get after journalists, have to look at the details.
I don't remember that.
Yep.
Why do these tech guys go all right wing all of a sudden?
Yeah. It's almost as if it's capitalism.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.
The courts make a ruling and the administration decides to run over the courts. What then? What can Congress do? You say it's our job in Congress to stand up to it.
There's two major functions here. One is the oversight of what they're doing, right? And one of the things that we haven't even talked about is that our Republican colleagues have been acquiescing in all of this. I know this. I've seen a few of them stand up from time to time. Maybe they'll stand up to cancer trials being cut. Watch for it. Maybe they'll stand up to Kash Patel, which they sure better do, as this man who has shown no regard for the truth is about to become head of the FBI unless they stand up.
All right, I have a new rule. You're not allowed to become a member of Congress if you have a voice that sounds like this. You're not allowed to be on television if your voice sounds like this. I'm ableist now.
Up for it. But they have to stand up to make this really work. Then you have oversight, and you can also pass legislation to make very...
Did you hear about the 2 private planes that crashed at each other at Scottsdale, Arizona? 1 person died, 3 were injured.
Clear what the limits are.
This is nothing compared to RFK. It's on the same continuum. I also agree that RFK should not be allowed to speak in public. I don't know if you saw this, but HUD removed the anti-discrimination protection against homeless trans people. Yeah, I did see that. The Democrats were going to do that anyway, honestly. Like, here's the thing. I think a lot of people are trying to find all the ways that the Republicans would have been worse than Kamala Harris. And I think that that is a mug's game. I think it's honestly a mug's game at this point. Because Kamala Harris is not going to be president of the United States ever. The Democrats have lost. You're wasting your life and your time doing that. You need to be figuring out how we can organize resistance and build a political movement that could actually win. Instead of trying to find some justification for why voting for Kamala Harris was smart, it wasn't smart. It was stupid. Supporting the Democratic Party was stupid. Move the fuck on.
Power. But that being said, I still believe the courts have power.
If the courts make a ruling and the administration decides to run over the courts, what then? What can Congress do? You say it's our job in Congress to stand up to it.
There's two major functions here. One is the oversight of what they're doing, right? And one of the things that we haven't even talked about is that our Republican colleagues have been acquiescing in all of this. I know this. I've seen a few of them stand up from time to time. Maybe they'll stand up to cancer trials being cut. Watch for it. Maybe they'll stand up to Kash Patel, which they sure better do, as this man who has shown no regard for the truth is about to become head of the FBI unless they stand up for it. But they have to stand up to make this really work. Then you have oversight, and you can also pass legislation to make very clear what the limits are on this power. But that being said, I still believe the courts have power.
If the courts...
I'm sorry, chat. She's just useless. Basically, the answer is, and this is something that I was saying before the election, is that constitutions are pieces of paper, and they're about that effective at stopping bullets. And the Republican Party, like, these kind of liberal institutions only stand up as long as we all collectively agree that they stand up. Now that Republicans have realized that the Democrats are not capable of fighting back, they're no longer doing democracy. Democracy is the result of a society where the factions in that society have realized or have calculated that outright war on the other factions would be too damaging and risky to themselves. And so that they have decided to declare peace and adopt these structures in order to have a reasonable and peaceful transition of power and power sharing within various factions in society. That is what democracy is used for. When one faction realizes that the other factions are incapable of resisting that faction, they will no longer use democracy. And the Republican Party has realized that the left does not exist and the centrist Democrats will not resist. And that's it. That's the ball game. And if you're waiting for the Democrats to, or the liberals to ever stand up or show an ounce of militancy, that's why they're a liberal, because they don't believe in fighting. They don't believe in standing up. So they will rationalize anything. You see, my kind of loyalty was loyalty to one's country, not to its institutions or its office holders. The country is the real thing, the substantial thing, the eternal thing. It is the thing to watch over and care for and be loyal to. Institutions are extraneous. They are its mere clothing, and clothing can wear out, become ragged, cease to be comfortable, cease to protect the body from winter, disease, and death. To be loyal to rags, to shout for rags, to worship rags, to die for rags. That is loyalty of unreason. It is pure animal. This is a great quote. This is a great quote. Honestly, it's a great quote. Like, what the Democratic Party is a rag. The Democratic Party is a rag. And it's time for us to stop being loyal to a rag and to build something new, to cut our own coat from 10 yards of linen. All right, chat, let's see how the liberal comedians are handling it.
Daily Show. My name is Jon Stewart, and man, we worked almost all day on tonight's show. We've got a great one for you tonight. David Remnick will be joining me later. He's the editor of the New Yorker magazine. They're celebrating... What an erudite crowd. Celebrating their 100th year at the New Yorker, and he and I will be discussing the difference between umlauts and diaeresis. Emphasis on the... I'll just go now. Let's just... But first, the Super Bowl was last night, and man... Oh... It was on television. It began with the teams being introduced from heaven.
With 2 years of trifecta, 2 years, 2/3 Republicans blocked everything Biden wanted, and now Jeffrey says they can't do anything because that's the truth. The Democrats did exactly what they wanted to do under Joe Biden. I want you to understand this. Joe Biden got everything done that he wanted to get done. Do you understand? And what he wanted to get done sucks. That is the facts. He told you, he went to his donors, nothing will fundamentally change. He went in front of us and he says, I want a strong Republican Party. Mission fucking accomplished.
And it's just fucking weird. And it ended with the Kansas City Chiefs in who? So, congratulations to the people of Philadelphia who immediately, I disagree, by the way, who immediately celebrated their victory by attacking their own city, killing their own city. Die, Philadelphia. They were mashing their own city, doing tens of dollars worth of damage.
So my reaction to this is, like, I think mocking sports riots shows a person to be inhuman and to be missing the depth of human emotion and an understanding of what it represents, which is a manic freedom, a manic joy that frees you from the restrictions of society, a kind of moment of radical freedom, of joy, when your happiness, your collective happiness, makes you realize that the institutions of control don't control you. It gives you that emotional space. So I see riots around sporting events to be an intensely human act. And I feel like when nerds make this skit part of their shit, it shows that they don't feel feelings the way that other people do. They don't have that depth of emotion. And like, I think sports ball is very interesting because it is highly related to politics, because we are a tribal species. We grab close to the members of our group. It is what it is. That is the human experience. And if you can't understand that, you're missing out. The question that you have as a left winger is, how do we turn those feelings of in-group solidarity and we make the in-group big enough to encompass the world, to encompass all of humanity, to encompass our ecosystem, to encompass everything, life. What do we do to expand that circle? Not to deny that that circle exists, because you're acting like a fucking weirdo. Sport is a microcosm of society. Oh, sure, without a doubt. Nah, sports rioting is insane. You just didn't understand a word of what I just said. I just explained to you that it is a manic emotional state. It is a declaration of freedom and joy. And smashing up the fucking cops, breaking things that we're supposed to worship, is cool in that moment. I'm not saying that it's good or you should do it. I'm just saying that it is an emotional state that you need to understand. Because the same emotions that drive someone to riot over a sports ball game would drive them to do a revolution. It's related. If you don't understand why they're related, that's why you fail. You know what? The right wing understands it. The right wing understands they're related. Go look at Europe. What did the far right do to build their base? They went to soccer hooligan groups in Poland, in Hungary. They built their political movement around soccer hooligan groups. And there are soccer hooligan groups of the left. For example, the Celtic team. They are left-wing soccer hooligans. It's good to be connected to that. It's good to be connected to that raw emotion and solidarity. And like, that's good, man. People who are like John Oliver, they are weird. They're antisocial. Don't listen to this fucking lib. He's wrong.
Yeah, that's right. I'm implying.
Did I say Oliver? I mean, Jon Stewart, sorry.
Shithole. Give Saquon back. But of course, my favorite moment was the inexplicable post-victory horse race, where the winner stands triumphant atop the steps of the Philadelphia Art Museum. That's not Photoshop. That's the horse ran up the steps of the Philadelphia Art Museum, reared up on its hind legs, and went, Adrian! But here's, and I'm gonna drop some knowledge here. No one really cared about the game because of the earth-shattering announcement that had been made moments prior.
You know, we're flying over right now. We're flying over a thing called the Gulf of America. And I'm signing a proclamation, and perhaps you could define that.
First of all, why do you fly around in a Hyatt hotel room? Second of all, define proclamation? You don't know what a proclamation... Or did you just want her to say what the actual proclamation... I'm sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
This is a proclamation declaring today, February 9th, 2025, as the first ever Gulf of America Day.
And we're flying right over it right now. So we thought this would be appropriate. Even bigger than the Super Bowl.
It's true. Bigger than the Super Bowl. In fact, my favorite thing about Gulf of America Day are the commercials. Ooh. It's very historic. I'm sure we'll look back on this day fondly when America is swallowed up by the rising waters of the Gulf of America. You know, it turns out, it's kind of a weird thing. Airplanes might not be the best place to make bigger than the Super Bowl announcements.
Even bigger than the Super Bowl. This is a big thing. And almost everybody now has assented to that.
Attention on board. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please direct your attention out the right side of the aircraft. Air Force One is currently in international waters for the first time in history, flying over the recently renamed Gulf of America.
First of all, oh my God, it shut him up, even for just a second. I think airplane pilots must be the most powerful force in the universe. I feel like the Democrats have to get themselves an airplane pilot. Sorry for the interruption, but you can't do that.
Actually, that's a very good point. We saw this the other day, but Sully Sullenberger is big into unions. He's a big union guy.
I've been a general aviation pilot for over 50 years. This December, it will have been 114 years since the Wright brothers first flew. So I've been involved with aviation for 44% of its entire history. I've seen it done well and I've seen it done not well. I know what works and what doesn't. Our air traffic control system is the best, the safest in the world. Why would we give such an important and valuable national asset to the largest airlines? The same people who continue to make your airline seats smaller and closer together, who often put expedience and cost reduction ahead of the safety, the welfare of others in the long term. One of the main reasons that the big airlines want to control the air traffic control system, they would set the rules of access, they would set the cost of access to our airports. We would see greater emphasis on only the largest airports. Regional or rural airports would probably lose capital funds. That's really the danger in my mind. What we need is someone overseeing our air travel system whose motivation is doing what's best for America and for Americans, and not for their own industry or for themselves.
Honestly, the technique is not good.
Okay, Facebook is so trash. Jesus fucking Christ. We hate Facebook, don't we, folks? We're never gonna use it ever again. Don't look at his politics. Oh no. Oh no. Is he a right winger? Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. He may be one of these guys. He endorsed Joe Biden for the presidency. And he told people to vote for the Democrats in the 2018 midterms. But he's a registered Republican. So he's like a lib.
You know, they'll let Schumer will be the pilot.
He's like an anti-Trump Republican Union guy, which is very funny. Honestly, like, this makes perfect sense. Honestly, he has exactly the politics I would have thought he had, honestly.
But forgive me, I've forgotten. What does calling it Gulf of America do? Do we get all its fish now?
Make America great again, right? That's what we care about.
Making America great again. Yeah. Everything Trump does is all part of making America great again. Order one. Roll back everything from the previous not great administration. Regulations on the environment, regulations on the Second Amendment, the Title IX guidance, and not just the big shit. You want to make America great again, you can't skimp on the details.
President Trump says he's going to reverse Joe Biden's mandate to phase out plastic straws, saying, enjoy your next drink without a straw that disgustingly dissolves in your mouth.
Okay, he's right on this one. He is right on this one. Those straws are...
I just wish restaurants would, like, I wish people would just have, like, reusable straws that they washed. To wash a straw, you have to get like a pipe cleaner. It's a pain in the ass. You know, like, I hate paper straws. There, I said it. Fuck paper straws or bamboo straw. Something. The thing about plastic is, like, I don't think we realize just how damaging microplastics are to our bodies. Like, I think, like, in 20, 30, 40 years, we're going to look back and be like, yeah, plastic is, like, super bad for you. We just don't care. I mean, I'd care. I just hate I think paper straws are fucking disgusting. Like, actually disgusting. Microplastics found in every human testicle in study.
Terrible. Objectively terrible. I'm supposed to have some weird tissue paper dissolve in my mouth just because turtles can't figure out straws aren't food? No. Don't eat the tubes, you stupid turtles. So Trump is making America great again by taking us back to 2016. But obviously, if we're going to make America great again, we can't stop in 2016. We got to keep pushing to that place when America was truly great. How much further back do we need to go?
Imagine if Donald Trump could just live the life he really wants to live, which is to be a producer of off-Broadway musicals with a twink sitting on his lap. Like, imagine if he had just been able to do that. And then, like, he never made anything that was, like, really good. Right about now, he'd be winning a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Tonys. Like, he was never good enough to win a Tony, but he would, like as a producer, but he gets a Lifetime Achievement Award because, like, kind of in musical theater, Trump was kind of known as a place where a lot of, like, great actors got their start with, like, some off-Broadway shit. And, like, that is Donald Trump's real happy place. Like, that's where Donald Trump, in the good place, Donald Trump is crying right now, receiving his Lifetime Achievement Award with his longtime live-in lover, Antonio, under his left arm, wearing a pink tie. Like, that would be Trump, like, happy and fulfilled. But no, he had to be born in an era of homophobia. He had to have a right-wing dad and a Ku Klux Klan grandfather that kind of sent him to military school, and he had to suppress it. This guy loves cats. Like, this is not just like a joke I'm making up.
Hello, everyone. I'm down here in Mar-a-Lago, and I'm going to be interviewing our real president, Donald J. Trump. This is very exciting for me. I've got a lot of questions I wrote that I don't believe he's been asked. Some of them I know he hasn't been asked, and I'm very excited to see that we can all share and hear some of the things that the questions that all of you out there wanted to hear when we asked you all what would you like to hear in this interview. And so is running the country, was it what you expected it to be? Was it like when you were running your business?
Donald, when you talk about like power and stuff like that, what's more like powerful to you, being the president or being a multi-billionaire, like owning real estate?
I just want to know personally, as a dad, as a father, as a family man, how are you and the family doing? I mean, how are you and the family doing?
Everyone wants to hear, how are you doing?
Donald, what's your handicap right now in golf?
If you could use one club to play a round of golf, what club would that be?
7-iron.
My question for you, sir,
The answer is
from
the
where do you
7-iron, or maybe the 5-iron. Like, come on, it's not hard.
get your strength? Where do you draw your strength from?
Where do you get the
I feel
emotional
like it'd be easier to putt with the 7-iron. That's why I say 7-iron.
strength from?
And by the way, I do want to say you look
The
good.
7-iron was my best club, so that's why I say 7-iron. But
looks great. You look great.
You're looking fit. You're fit. You're looking fit.
You look well.
I want to talk about your book, this new book.
this is like Ethan Klein's crew. This is like Ethan Klein's crew. Don't get that cough checked out. You look great. Yeah, skin's supposed to be a little bit yellow.
Letters to Trump.
Here's the book, Letters to Trump. It's a beautiful book.
Bookstores everywhere.
Yeah, I think your eyes kind of sink into your head when you lose a lot of weight. That's pretty normal to lose a lot of weight in your eyelids and in your, it's really normal to lose weight in your, eye sockets. What do you mean?
Letters are fascinating. Politicians, world leaders, and so forth.
Letters from Reagan, Kennedy.
I have a letter from Andrew Lloyd Webber. I got to know Andrew Lloyd Webber.
So when he's asked by all these guys, they want to talk to him about golf and shit. And he's like, let me tell you about Cats, my favorite musical. I'm the guy who the manly men like, the strapping men. Let me tell you how strong their muscles are. And they're glistening and they didn't even put oil on. Let me tell you about my favorite musicals. This is who the like Donald Trump is one of those guys. He really represents everything that fascism is in an American form. The homoeroticism of fascism, the kind of like the culture of constantly thinking about gay sex. That is the right wing in America today.
And I knew him before he got married, after he got married. He lived in Trump Tower with Sarah Brightman was his wife. Different than your relationship with your beautiful wife. They fought. Andrew Lloyd Webber writing me a letter. Donald, I'm opening a new musical. He writes me a letter. I'm opening up a new musical in New York. It's called Phantom of the Opera. We're having opening night. I look at this beautiful letter I get from Andrew Lloyd Webber, who was big before Phantom, but nothing like Phantom. And he did Jesus Christ Superstar, which was another great one. He did a lot of great things. Phantom was one of the greatest. I'm a big fan of Phantom. I mean, I have a letter from Andrew Lloyd Webber.
This beautiful letter I get from Andrew Lloyd Webber writing me a letter. So he writes me a letter. I'm opening up a new musical. Andrew Lloyd Webber saying, I'd love you to come to Phantom of the Opera. Andrew Lloyd Webber writing me a letter. It's Andrew Lloyd Webber. He wrote me a letter, but it was an interesting letter because it's sort of like I'm opening a musical. He wrote me a letter, and it's Dear Donald, essentially saying, I'm opening a new musical in New York. It's called Phantom of the Opera. I think it might be good. Would you like to come? I said, yeah, I'd like to go. I'm opening up a musical called The Phantom of the Opera. And I said, oh, it's called Phantom of the Opera. We're having opening night in a month or whatever it was. And I'm saying to myself, all right, it's a musical. It's called Phantom of the Opera. A musical called Phantom of the Opera. Called Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah. Phantom of the Opera.
I'm opening up a new musical. I'm opening a show.
See what I mean? Like when I was saying that Donald Trump happy would be him getting the Lifetime Achievement Award at the Tonys. Like him being political and being a right winger, and it's just like, if I ever talked to Donald Trump, I would be like, don't you ever just want to quit and go and like make a bunch of musicals? Would you and Andrew Lloyd Webber just make the best music? Like if you just said fuck all this politics bullshit, and you went and you made like a sequel to Cats, it would be the best musical that has ever been made. Like why do like.
But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go back to the old days with regular tits. Not the ones that disgustingly dissolve in your mouth. Also, Jesus. But let's not stop in the 70s there, folks. Not even in the... Let's keep going. Because that sounds like the 50s, and the 50s are still too inclusive. I mean, by then, Italians and Irish were considered white. No, that's too far. Keep going back. America's greatness awaits.
We were the richest country in the world. We were at our richest from 1870 to 1913. That's when we were a tariff country.
1870s. Okay. There we go. 1870s. Pew, 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 pew. And of course, while America presently is still pretty rich, apologies, Luxembourg. Point taken. Who wouldn't trade our current environment for America's 1870s tariff-driven, becandled, tuberculosis-laden, pre-industrial heyday?
We were so wealthy, we had commissions set up what to do with all the money that we were taking in.
Quick point of order, though. To the extent that we were at our richest from 1870 to 1913, it wasn't so much we as like four guys. And we called them robber barons as a sign of affection.
Kyle Kulinski wants this man to be president. And I think that's why like those kind of people are not really fans of mine, because like that kind of political analysis is so pathetically stupid and out of touch and embarrassing, and it shows that you have this kind of television watcher brain. And it's just like Jon Stewart can't even lead a writer's room. Like what are you talking about, man? Like he shouldn't run for dog catcher. He's not even funny. That's the profession he picked.
Meanwhile, the rest of America, the leading cause of death was falling into a vat at work. And it got to the point where even the robber barons realized that the only way this glorious era in American history was going to end was either full-scale f***ing revolution or reasonable compromise, which is how we ended up with stuff like income tax. And
what the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? You dumb liberal fraud. The robber barons didn't wake up one day enlightened by our rational arguments and give us fucking labor laws. There were riots. There were rebellions. There were political fights. There was literal gun battles. There was the Cold Wars. There was mass movements, you fucking dumb piece of shit. They tried to coup FDR, you dumb bastard. What are you talking about?
Labor laws and workplace safety guarantees. So
this guy should be the president. He can't read a book.
Really tread carefully in the greatness way back machine.
Arizona House Republican Andy Biggs introduced a bill this week that would abolish OSHA, a Department of Labor agency tasked with overseeing workplace safety.
By the way, chat, this is good. This is good. OSHA has been fundamentally abolished for 30 fucking years anyway. They barely inspect anything. They barely enforce anything.
For the vets!
And by the way, I'm being sarcastic when I say it's good. It's very bad, but it's been hollowed out by the Democratic Party for decades.
And fill mine with boiling tallow, boy. What? What? Why not just bring back child labor while you're at it?
When you talk about school lunches, hey, I worked my way through high school. I don't know about you, but I worked since I was, before I was even 13 years old. I was picking berries in the field before we had child labor laws that precluded that.
No, you weren't.
You were picking berries in a field before your bar mitzvah? I mean, by the way, how old are you if you were picking berries before there were child labor laws? Because is the key to good skin working the fields as a child? Now, I hate to bring this up, but if we are going back to the 1870s and before, does that include every diversity initiative?
Birthright citizenship was, if you look back when this was passed and made, that was meant for the children of slaves. This was not meant for the whole world to come in, everybody coming in, and totally unqualified people with perhaps unqualified children.
Don't bring us your tired and poor huddled masses. Do you have any mathletes? Any Doogies Hauser? We will take all of your Sheldons, young and old. For those of you at home who might fear that the president's desire to take us back to our nation's historic greatness may tread into unconstitutional action, fear not, because the brilliant design of our nation allows for the co-equal branch of the judiciary to stand as a bulwark against tyranny, as judged in the landmark decision of 1803 Marbury versus Madison, which, as you know, is when James Madison lost the historic Supreme Court case to Stephon Marbury. Marbury ran him out of the building and established our foundational separation of powers.
Vice President J.D. Vance, he had some interesting words about the separation of power and government.
He's for it?
If a judge tried to tell a general how to conduct a military operation, that would be illegal. If a judge tried to command the attorney general on how to use her discretion as a prosecutor, that's also illegal. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power.
Except for the part where you said legitimate power. Are judges allowed to control the executive's illegitimate power?
Ah! Of course they're allowed to adjudicate the boundaries of that power. That's the whole f***ing point of the judiciary, to interpret whether those powers are legitimate. You went to law school, motherfucker. The alternative is that the only alternative is that the executive determines for himself what is constitutional, at which point there would be no guardrails against, hey, Congress. Hey, buddy. You got a little separation of powers problem. I was wondering, any chance you might be reasserting your authority? Opposition party? Democrats, you ready to do some oppositioning?
There are some things we can do. But the Republicans are in the majority in the Senate and the House. We're going to need some Republicans, frankly, who are willing to lose, who are willing to be a Liz Cheney.
He's wearing the Zionist yellow ribbon, in case you want to know who this is. You want to understand how pathetically stupid this fucking loser is? God damn, these Democrats, man. These Democrats are legitimately worse than Republicans. The analogy to think of is, if you have an enemy in front of you, you understand what they are, and you can put your mind to defeating the enemy. When you have a false friend, your mind doesn't even think about defeating them. You become even more... an enemy and a false friend of the same size, a false friend is much greater of a threat. And so liberals at this point are false friends. And they are absolutely shot through the so-called left wing in America. We need to separate. We need to separate. And the thing that I want you to understand, Chad, is a lot of people, when they hear me say that, they say, you're throwing away millions of votes. No, I'm not. I'm talking about ideological liberals. The number of people that are ideological of any ideology in America and who can coherently explain it are around 10% of people. People that are ideological liberals and are dedicated to the ideology of liberalism and understand what that means represent sub 10%, sub 5% of the population as a whole. These people are not significant. There's a lot of people who identify as Democrats, but they are not ideological liberals. And so destroying the Democratic Party, shaking people out of the identitarian way they're voting and getting them to start thinking with their fucking brains again about ideas and arguments and thoughts is the only way we get out of this moment. And why is that the way to go? Because in Florida, they voted 60% for, enfranchising felons. They're voting for abortion rights. They're voting to legalize weed. They're voting for abortion rights in Kansas. In Kansas, they had a person run as an independent. He almost won. I'm sorry, that was in Nebraska, right? It was, wait, where was Dan Osborne running? I'm forgetting now. It was Nebraska. That's what I said. Okay, I was right. Nebraska, not Kansas. Nebraska. We have to break out of this system. And these people are not bringing anyone of value to us. For every ideological liberal you win, you lose 10 regular people, if not 20. And the Democratic Party is collapsing because of that. Just because someone is obsessed with politics doesn't make them a good ally. If everything they believe is frustrating and wrong and damaging, they need to be separated. We need to make our own arguments. We need to run on our own platform. And we need to separate ourselves from people like this. And we are going to lose. But we need to know where we stand.
Cheney and say, I will lose my seat to do the right thing by this country, not the right thing by Donald Trump. I haven't seen it yet. Let's hope.
Democratic Congressman Dan Goldman of New York.
That's the sales pitch. We just need someone on their side willing to lose everything for progress, like a Russian dog being shot into space. You can see the Democrats' backbone on our new show, America Backslide, starring Dan Goldman as hopeful loser. But fine. We have to rely on Republicans in Congress to be a check on Trump. How's that going?
Republican Senator Tom Tillis says that while he believes Trump's actions run afoul of the Constitution in the strictest sense, he believes nobody should bellyache about that.
You're comfortable if he shuts those down without getting congressional approval?
Congress will be involved at some point, but I think the country's comfortable.
They're using that authority right now in a way that hasn't been used in a long time, so it looks radical. It's not.
Do you think he violated the law? Well, technically, yeah. I'm not, losing a whole lot of sleep.
Well, it's been a good run, America. It's looked like we're becoming less like the constitutional republic it's been for 250 years and more like the monarchy that we all fought to escape from. But I think the important
thing... Someone with talent, please get on the screen. Oh, God. Ask and you shall receive. Ask and you shall receive. Pre-watch. You think I would watch this on my own? You think I would watch this shit on my own? Yes? Oh, my God. You are wrong.
John, the prodigal son appears to have returned.
What? Is that? Wait. Is that? Hold on. Do my eyes deceive me? Is that young John Oliver?
Yes.
Are you here to offer America your wisdom and counsel?
Oh, no, John. I am here to gloat. America
had its little fun, didn't you, in experimenting with democracy? You fought so hard to get away from us, acting up, throwing all that tea into the harbour. You still owe us for that, by the way.
I mean, how much? It was just tea, John.
It was just tea? You take that back. You take that back right now.
I know.
Okay,
It's a very sensitive beverage.
The point is, you told everybody that you were going to be different. You weren't going to turn out like your mean old dad who was so horrible to you when you were growing up, so we sat back. We let you spend your wild teen years experimenting with your ridiculous ideas of checks and balances because deep down we knew that once you got that nonsense out of your system, you'd be backed. In fact, if I may sing from Hamilton.
I'd appreciate not.
That's fair. What I'm saying is, let me be the first to welcome America
I never watched Hamilton, chat. I never watched Hamilton. And like, the reason why I never watched Hamilton is because a lib friend of mine recommended West Wing, and it was the worst thing I'd ever seen in my entire life. I didn't make it through the whole show, but it was so bad. I almost like ended the friendship. Like that, like recommending me West Wing almost caused me to end the friendship. It's absolutely unwatchable slop for the dumbest MSNBC libs. It's idiotic in every way. The smug centrist liberals are wrong constantly, and they get owned, and then they make faces at the camera like they're not getting owned. It's like every single thing is the libs getting owned, but going like, very inconsistent of you. Holy shit, we've got ourselves a hype train, folks. Well, it is 3 hours into the stream, so if you do enjoy the content, please consider supporting it by subscribing at tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 sub. Chat, how many people here are LA folks? How many people here are LA folks? Southern California people. Hammond Fist, thank you for the, what was that, 15? 20? Eat the Rich, thank you for the tier 2. All right, LA people, do you ever go to DSA meetings? Be honest. Be honest. If I told you to go to one, would you go? If I said, I'm going to go to this one, I want you to meet me there, would you go? I'm seeing a lot of people say yes. Here's the thing. They're scared of the hood, LMAO. Bro, I lived in Philadelphia. There's nothing happening in LA that can match the mid-Atlantic ghetto. Okay? Nothing in LA matches Philly ghetto or Baltimore ghetto. I would be taking my life in my own hands. Like, come on, it's LA. Does that mean that I wouldn't get rolled on because I don't know shit? Yes. I would deserve it. But being scared of cities in America is funny. Chicago's is probably the worst in the country. I don't know Chicago that well, so I can't say. Anyway, chat, thank you so much for supporting the stream. Right now, we are 25 subs away from our sub goal. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting it right now by subscribing. The single best way to support a stream is paying for your own sub. So if somebody gifted you a sub and it's happened a number of weeks in a row, a number of months in a row, you're getting gifted subs a lot, but you could afford to throw me $6, it's $6. It's not even a McDonald's fucking combo anymore. All right? It's not that big a deal to throw $6 to somebody who's providing you content for hours upon hours fucking every day. Throw the $6, save your, don't take a large fry at McDonald's because they cost $6 now, and subscribe to the channel. And let the gifted subs go to the people that actually are struggling to make ends meet. The people who can't afford to pay for a sub because they're working paycheck to paycheck. They're parents of young children. They're a college student. They're somebody on a fixed income because of retirement or disability. Those people who are struggling to make ends meet. Consig, thank you for the 5 tier ones. Those are the people. Smash the fast, thank you. Those are the people that you should be gifting subs to. Large fries, $6. No, I'm exaggerating, but a combo is expensive as fuck. They have the $6 meal deal. It used to be a $5 meal deal. It's $6 now. It used to be $5. They raised it to $6. Anyway, if you enjoy the content, please consider supporting it. Thank you everybody for all the gifts. We have a hype train, so the top sub gifter and the top bit donor gets a conductor badge. So for as little as 200 bits, you can get that golden locomotive next to your name. Anyway, like honestly, when you support the stream by gifting, you're doing a lot of good things. One, You're giving people emotes that they can use to spam in other channels to help promote the stream. You're boosting us in the algorithm because Twitch likes it when your channel gets subscribers and has a lot of chat messages. So you're boosting us in the algorithm of people who watch similar channels like Hassan or whatever, or Caroline or Denims or whatever. When they're not live, those people get pushed toward this channel. So you help this channel grow. And the bigger the channel gets, the higher we are in the carousel, which means when people click on browse, just chatting, when we're in the top slots, that's the kingmaker slots. And so more people wander in here, more people follow, more people get their politics to be improved. They stop being dumbass liberals. They stop being kind of Gaber bro dipshits, and they actually start using their brains. Thanks to the gift subs, I just got a call for a second interview for a new job. Good luck. Anyway, thank you everybody for supporting the stream. Lazy K, Comrade Dilly, Don's Idobo, Mikey Skeleton, Smash the Fash was 15. Thank you so much. Consig, Tom like a Tom, thank you for the 10. You're the man. Pile Driver, thank you for the 5. Chapter Thrive, thank you for the 5. Hamid Fist, thank you for the 20. And thank you for being a sharp-elbowed left that this country needs. You are an inspiration to this fellas leftist millennial. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate you. Queen Kitten, thank you for 43 months of hot takes and hair growth. So true. Tia, thank you for the 30 months. Or Brain, thank you for the tier 3. And yeah, thank you everybody else who subscribed and supported the stream. Autark Praxis gave 6 months of tier 3? Holy shit. Thank you so much. Empty in between, thank you for the tier 3. And I appreciate all of you. All right, let's keep going.
It's monarchy era.
I got out of the army after 12 years and I'm unemployed until my several job offers actually pan out, which may take a few months, one of which is 6 figures. Once I start, I'll pay it for it. Should have stayed in for the 20 years, man. Should have gotten the pension. No, I'm kidding. Congratulations. Any gifters for the brain domain?
Congratulations, everyone. You can now take your place in the pantheon of great empires alongside the British, the Roman, the Klingon, Wakanda, whatever one Babar the elephant was the ruler of, I forget.
Hold on a second, Mr. Oliver.
Yes.
If I may.
Yes.
Ambassador Oliver.
Go ahead.
For a moment.
Please.
America, yes. We are having a bit of trouble with democratic governance, but I don't think we want to abandon our republic and go full empire.
Yeah, but why not, John? You really prefer the system that you have right now? Oh, I need 51 votes for a bill to pass. Is the vice president in town to break a tie? Or, wait, is this one of the bills that needs 60 votes for no clear reason? Well, I'm sorry, little Timmy, no health care for you.
All right. It does not sound great when you put it like that.
Oh, you mean when I put it entirely accurately, John? It doesn't sound great. What I'm saying is don't fight being a monarchy, John. Embrace it. Kings get shit done. Now, is it stuff that you want done? Not necessarily, but they do move quick. They taste cumin at lunch, and they've taken over an entire continent by dinner time. That is how the British rolls, John. F everyone else, they're not like us. In fact, if I may sing a line from Mr. Kendrick Lamar.
No. I really don't think you should do that.
I appreciate you for stopping me on that one in particular.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not to be short-sighted, but spoiler alert.
Yeah.
John, things didn't end up so great for the British Empire.
First of all, how dare you? We are technically between empires at the moment, but we're keeping our castles warm and our crowns bejeweled for the day that we get back onto our feet.
Look, no offense, but I'm not sure the imperial model is for us.
Oh, really? The imperial model isn't for you, John.
That's right.
Have you seen anything America's done over the last 50 years? Because for a country that doesn't want to be an empire, you're doing a pretty good impression of one right now. Invasions, economic exploitations, and now suggesting turning Gaza into a beachfront casino?
Isn't John Oliver so much better? Like, it's so funny how much better John Oliver is than Jon Stewart. Like, it's night and fucking day, dude.
King George would have been like, I don't know, guys.
By the way, chat, 96% through level 12. 96%.
Feels like the situation's a bit more complicated than that, and I'm literally dying
Thank you so
of
much for the hype train, folks.
Evil brain disease.
You know what?
Dixby, you missed it. You guys were too slow. You were too fucking slow.
He was doing that. He was dying. He was dying of a medical brain disease. It drove him crazy, but he could see that it was an unreasonable request.
We really have become our father.
Yeah. And you know what, John? Don't be sad about it. We couldn't be more proud. This shouldn't be a sad time. The arc of history is so long, it eventually becomes a circle. And you end up right where you started. You might even call it the circle of life. In fact, if I may sing the great imperial subject, Sir Elton John's opening Zulu chant from The Lion King. Please stop me, John. Please stop me from doing that. I do not want to do it. John, you please stop me. Please stop me. I don't want to go out like this. Stop me, John. Stop
All right.
me. Neither of us want
John
this.
Oliver, everybody.
Kinda official. Thank you so much. John Oliver, what a king. Jon Stewart, what a dud. So yesterday we talked about China investing in Africa and why, like the way the IMF and the way the Western world exploits Africa. And one of the things that was mentioned was the idea that there was a debt trap, that China is trying to do the same thing. When they invest in Africa, they're trying to create the same conditions that we create when we exploit these countries. So I wanted to show you this video from centrist news station Bloomberg to talk about the idea of the Chinese debt trap.
In the past 2 decades, China has built large infrastructure projects in almost every country in Africa. And this has made Western critics uncomfortable.
China and Africa can forge an even stronger, comprehensive, strategic and cooperative partnership.
A common portrayal of China's lending practices is known as debt trap diplomacy, a phrase made popular after being used in government documents during the Trump administration.
Bobby, thank you for the 5.
The so-called debt trap is created when a country lends to poorer countries, intentionally overwhelming them with unsustainable debt, forcing them to surrender strategic assets or concede increased political leverage. But so far, there's no evidence that such a debt trap has been sprung in Africa.
Now, there's always a certain grain of truth, like with every stereotype to it, but it breaks down very, very quickly upon any type of serious examination.
The focus on debt trap diplomacy is part of wider Western anxieties towards China in Africa.
We've already seen that Chinese investments in Chinese infrastructure projects have been linked to increasing Chinese influence within the host country ruling elite.
So in other words, because China is helping these people, they like China more. Therefore, like, that's bad because that means they like China more. So do you see the self-justifying circle, which is like China is helping these countries, which is bad because they like China? Uh-huh. The only way that makes sense is if you're so up your own ass with xenophobia and xenophobia and you hate China. So anything that makes China look good, you think is bad, right? That's the only way that makes sense as an argument.
That may end up becoming somewhat of a leverage point for China to push some of these countries or ruling elites to side with China on critical issues that are...
So side with China means like don't sanction China, don't blockade China, don't cut China off from the resources that they need for their society.
Important to the U.S. or to its allies.
Do you notice how nothing is specifically said?
But while the US has focused its Africa strategy on aid and social services, China has been building.
African governments themselves said, we are tired of aid and charity. We want to do trade. We want to be treated like partners. The Chinese came along and said, great, we don't do aid and charity. We want to do business with you.
Global Gateway will mobilize 300
And by the way, chat, charity is bad. Charity is liberalism. Treating somebody with respect is building them a school, building them a hospital, building them a port, building them a metro system, building them a railway, building them a water system. That's respect. Respect is not, here's some food that I made for you. That's not respect. That doesn't lift people up. It keeps them in subjugation.
Euros till 2027.
Now the US and Europe are answering back with their own infrastructure initiatives to counter China, but African experts are skeptical.
At the end of the day, China has been that guy around the corner with, a bouquet of flowers to Africa, the US, Europe and the UK have time and time again said, be careful of the flowers you see out of the window, they have thorns on them.
Anyway, slap.
In Ghana, the handover of power from the British government went off smoothly and with dignity.
From the 1950s into the 1970s, countries on the African continent gained independence from their European colonizers.
No, they didn't.
US and European-led organizations like the IMF and the World Bank funded much-needed infrastructure across the continent. But that slowly stopped.
The United States and Europe kind of backed away from infrastructure in the 60s and 70s. It's something that we did very, very well for a long time in the post-war era. We built vast amounts of infrastructure throughout the world. And one of the things you see in Africa is that so much of the railways and the highways and the infrastructure was built during the colonial period. And back then it was quite solid, but it's been decrepit because the former colonial governments are not plowing in lots of money.
Enter China. As early as the 1970s, Beijing began building the Tazara Railway, a link between the Zambian town of Kapiriamposhi and Dar es Salaam port in Tanzania. At the time, it was the longest railway in sub-Saharan Africa, allowing Zambia to ship copper, bypassing white ruled Rhodesia and South Africa. It also gave China much-needed political allies.
Beijing said, we have problems.
Notice that what China did was helping Africans avoid white supremacy and colonialism that the U.S. was supporting.
We will help you out. And they embarked on this. And this is really some of the early seeds that China sowed in Africa that later, came to clearly define the divide between the West and the East as far as China's involvement in Africa is concerned.
In the early 2000s,
scary music, red flags are showing, play the scary music.
As China looked to expand markets and political influence abroad, its investment in Africa ramped up.
The Chinese said, well, guess what? We are the best in the world now at producing large-scale infrastructure fast and cheap. And we have a surplus of capital. So we'll loan you the money. We have our great contracting companies. We have all of this skill and all this ability to deliver fast and cheap. And in that sense, it was really an ideal match. They recognized what Africa's development stage was, and they said, you know what? 30 years ago, that was us. We recognize a lot of what's going on here. You don't have enough infrastructure. You have a large population that's growing quickly. Also, let's not underestimate, there is a shared history here of anti-colonial struggle. So you tick all of those different boxes, and Africa made a lot of sense for the Chinese to come in.
China is currently involved in an estimated 35 African countries and has made significant contributions to their infrastructure, including ports, railways, and power plants.
Wait, are those military bases they built? Are those Chinese drone sites? Are those black sites where they terrorize the people? Are these assassination squads? Oh no, these are ports and power plants and railroads? China's the bad guy, by the way.
It's estimated that China has invested more than $340 billion in Africa. So compared to how much China is investing across the world, this may not be as much, but for Africa, it's a lot of money because of the huge infrastructure gap that Africa faces.
But there are noticeable differences between Chinese financing and how the West lends, historically with low interest rates and flexible terms.
There must be over millions of different types of loans out there. But if you were to take an eagle's eye view of the different kinds of loans involving Chinese lenders, then you can broadly categorize them into three different types.
The loans fall into three categories: zero-interest loans offered as aid, concessional loans which have a lower interest rate often intended for large infrastructure projects, and the most common, commercial loans with higher interest rates in line with what you would get from a typical private bank.
One of the very interesting trends that we see when researchers discuss Chinese loans is that there is a tendency to bunch all three together. Well, the very first question you should ask yourself whenever you see something like that is, well, are they comparing apples to oranges? Because if you're comparing commercial loans to something available from the World Bank or one of its different agencies, then you're not really comparing like for like. And the fact of the matter is this, and I hope the borrowers out there are listening, 95%, if not 99% of the loan agreement are there in favor of the lenders, no matter who you deal with. This is because by the time you sign that loan agreement and you get the money, you'll have the money in your hands, and the only thing the bank will have is a piece of paper. That is why the loan agreements are in their favor.
In one report which analysed 100 Chinese contracts, it revealed that the loans are structured to give an advantage over other creditors and allows action to be taken if the borrower acts contrary to the interests of a People's Republic of China entity. There are also unusual clauses that shroud agreements in secrecy.
When you look at multilateral lenders like the World Bank and the different agencies, their shareholders are countries, and they're required to publish their lending and activities just to be transparent. They don't have any choice. On the other hand, when you come to commercial banks, then you'll see a very different case. And that is, banks often are under a duty of confidentiality to their clients. I think the Chinese banks are no different.
But the rush to give out loans by the Chinese has meant some of their early investments weren't as profitable as projected.
So when China stepped into the field, it was much welcomed by the developing world that there would be increased financing for infrastructure. However, with the rush to get projects off the ground, to put them into action and to begin construction, critical due diligence was often left by the wayside. Financial sustainability, social and environmental sustainability assessments kind of never were done, or were done haphazardly, or were simply not transparent or available to the populations. What this has ended up causing is states to take on projects that they initially thought were affordable, but unfortunately, they've been now saddled by debt.
China is coming for its pound of flesh in Uganda.
In 2021, the Entebbe International Airport in Uganda came under fire after local media reported that the airport would be taken over by China.
We call this a debt trap.
After closer examination of the contract, it was found there was no debt trap, and both sides have denied that the airport is in danger of a takeover.
Oh, that was just a lie. Oh, that was just a lie.
I think there is an assumption that certain governments are not able to look after themselves, or they're not either not sophisticated enough, or just simply too corrupt to look after its own interests. I think in my personal view and experience, that just simply hasn't been true.
Experts say more should be done by borrowing countries to make sure loans are more favorable to their interests. But the Chinese argue that the risk level is higher in African countries and greater repayment assurances are needed for loans that might not otherwise be available.
Certainly in my 20 years of experience, I've never seen a case where the Chinese bank will just say, look, don't read this, just sign on the dotted line. In fact, they will spend days and days, and they're sitting with us, going through every line of the document and making sure the other side understands, because they know in 10 years' time, if they don't explain this clearly, this is going to come back and haunt them.
Certainly, there are issues with how China finances projects. There are issues around transparency, but I don't think this is some sort of...
See, the thing about the transparency thing is we just read the other day a special forces document which said, if you find out about a Chinese project, we're going to mobilize USAID, we're going to mobilize our allies in the government, we're going to mobilize as a way to fight and block the project. So when they're crying about transparency, what they're really saying is, let us do our special operations and our CIA ops to block the project. That's what they're asking for. Oh, help us block the projects.
A grand master plan from Beijing in order to ensnare developing countries into debt and become further beholden to Beijing.
In Kenya and Nigeria, debts to Beijing are growing. These include Kenya's $3.6 billion railway from Mombasa to Nairobi, which reportedly lost $200 million in 3 years of operation, and a $1.3 billion loan from the China Exim Bank to fund Nigeria's largest infrastructure project, a 157-kilometre segment of the Lagos-Kano Railway.
The government itself can't afford to finance these things. The private sector isn't really stepping up. The West has not got an alternative program, so therefore China is the only game in town, and the terms of the loans are reasonable. At the same time, you have members of the National Assembly, particularly from the main opposition party, vocally criticizing the government for what they perceive to be a lack of transparency around the management of the loans from China. They often articulate this worry that you hear in other parts of Africa that China will try and seize Nigerian assets in the
By the way, this is just CIA propaganda.
Event of a default by the Nigerian government.
But looking closer at Kenya and Nigeria's total public debt, it doesn't appear that China's in a position to use the debt it's owed as leverage.
In Kenya, Chinese loans account for about 10% of the country's $70 billion total debt. And it's even less acute in Nigeria, where the Chinese debts are just about 3 to 4%. So again, we have to focus on the data as it is, not as these narratives and these storytelling, which we have these fantasies that Kenya is going to be taken over by the Chinese. One country cannot control another country just by owning 4 to 10% of its debt.
Only a handful of countries on the African continent have a significant amount of debt owed to China, and most of them owe much more to private bond markets.
Africa does not have a Chinese debt problem. Angola weights about a third of all Chinese debt in Africa. So take Angola out of the issue, then you have an even less serious problem in that respect. So it's very important that we narrow down this problem to be what it is.
But it only takes one bad deal to affirm Western fears.
I wonder why that is.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, a controversial method of borrowing based on future natural resource revenue has meant some projects have fallen victim to corruption.
Congo has a very, very significant mining industry. It's Africa's biggest producer of copper. It's by far the world's biggest
Man, and it's really poor. I wonder why.
Producer of cobalt. Cobalt is a key ingredient in the rechargeable batteries that power electric vehicles. You hear politicians talk about Congo saying that we are to cobalt as Saudi Arabia is to oil. However, up until now, at least, the benefits to government revenue and the benefits to the population at large have been rather limited.
Wow, that's surprising. I wonder why the Congo is so exploited. It must have been the Chinese.
In 2008, China and the Democratic Republic of Congo agreed that Chinese companies would finance $3 billion worth of infrastructure and build a $3.2 billion copper and cobalt project whose tax-free profits would repay both investments. China, with the help of these mines, has now come to dominate an industry at the heart of future technologies.
Now, by the way, chat, this mine project was an alternative to what we call artisanal mining. So what the Western countries would do, artisanal mining basically means slave labor, or individuals with like pickaxes just hitting their barefoot into the rocks and dirt. So what China did is they came in and they built a modern industrial mine using equipment and trained miners, like not miners like Destiny is messaging, but rather miners, M-I-N-E-R, okay? Not M-I-N-O-R, all right? This is the difference, okay? And therefore, surprise, surprise, most of the cobalt produced in Congo is now coming from these investments because they made a modern industrial mine with expertise and mechanization. So most of the cobalt comes from these professionally built mines that are infrastructure. Wow, surprise, surprise.
And leaked documents reveal millions of dollars that flow from Chinese entities, including the multi-billion-dollar mining project, to the family and associates of Congo's then-president, Joseph Kabila.
If the example of Congo applies elsewhere, these companies operate with a real deliberate lack of transparency. And if they find a willing partner in a government, as they did in Joseph Kabila's government, this lack of transparency can extend to and really envelop the relationship between the state and these mining companies.
There is a lot of anxiety in the West over China's involvement anywhere, really, because it's a strong number two to the US. And
Grimy, thanks for the 10, by the way. The 10 subs.
Very strong
appreciate
links,
you, brother.
with Africa, setting up a lot of logistical supply chains in Africa, preparing to expand its trade and take it to the next level, is worrisome, because whatever happens in Africa or whatever happens in Asia ultimately can affect the world order. There's a lot at stake.
Ideology may also be on the line. Countries that receive help from the US or European multilateral development banks often require values that fall in line with
You gotta be fucking kidding me with this bullshit.
Democratic nations.
Anti-corruption, good governance, transparency, participation, inclusion.
Like who?
These are things that
like
really
what
matter.
countries? Be specific.
We should want projects that are beneficial to the populations, that don't negatively affect them. And so while it may hinder the U.S. in being able to lend to certain countries, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing.
When countries in Africa take help from China, they're expected to side with or at least not participate in the condemnation of China on key issues including Taiwan and allegations of forced labor in Xinjiang.
On these sensitive red line issues, and Taiwan is certainly one of them, this is where the political relationship becomes more evident and much more important. Africa, more than almost any other region in the world, tends to vote as a bloc in major international organizations and tends to express itself as a group, if not the whole continent. And again, this is the political symbolism that's becoming increasingly important to China from a region like Africa that is so important to the Chinese, much more so in many ways than the resources, which again aren't as important to China simply because they can buy the resources now from any number of other places. But getting this kind of political support is very important in today's geopolitical environment.
We want to show that a democratic, value-driven approach can deliver on the most pressing challenges.
While the US and Europe haven't attempted to try and match China's investment on the continent, they have started work to offer alternatives. The EU's Global Gateway aims to supply 300 billion euros globally between 2020 and 2027. And Build Back Better World, or B3W from the US, aims to address the infrastructure needed in developing countries.
Up a lot. Didn't even get it done here.
Democracies are messy. Things take time in democracies. So while authoritarian regimes such as China are able to speed up the process, or able to get things
By the way, the idea that things are messy in democracies is just nonsensical bullshit. Just so you understand, that's not true. Just because something is a democracy doesn't means that it has to be ineffective. That's not the case. Democracy just means rule by the people. It doesn't mean having 8 meetings on every single fucking thing you do. If we say, I would like to have a, what do you think about having a national program of high-speed rail, and the majority of people vote for it, it's democratic. You don't, that doesn't then mean that I need to have 8 fucking planning meetings with every 10 feet with every single person who might be in the path of the planned project. The project has democratic legitimacy. The execution of the plan doesn't mean that it has to be shit. This is bullshit to defend a dysfunctional status quo. It's not true.
Done quicker. That doesn't mean it's of a better quality. And I think that's really where the U.S.
Africa has been underdeveloped for centuries at this point because of the U.S. and the West. China comes in and they're already, after like, what, 5 to 10 years, they've invested more than America has and the Europeans have? Like, what are you talking about? Have you guys ever seen a map of Africa's railroads? Look at this shit. Look at this shit. There's no north-south transcontinental railroad in Africa. There's kind of a west-east one, but not really. Most countries in Africa have one railroad that goes from whatever like natural resource they're exploited for to the port in a straight line. I mean, this is pathetic. And so, like, yeah, no shit, Africa needs development.
And others, and through the B3W initiative, can really make a difference is by actually developing and building high-quality infrastructure.
We believe in the nations of Africa, in the continent-wide spirit of entrepreneurship and innovation.
Why there is no north-south continental rail will become clear. Bro, have you looked at a continental map, a topographic map of Europe? Have you looked at the topographical map of Europe? They have north-south railroads. They're currently burrowing a huge tunnel through the Alps. Like, what are you talking about? I just want a living wage. Hey, Ethan Klein being sued for abusing his live-in maid and denying her needed medical treatment, and then just he went to Hassan's house once, and he's trying to claim that Hassan has a secret Hispanic slave. He's just making shit up. Honestly, I think Hassan should sue him for defamation at this point. Like, legitimately, he should. You're a fucking loser. Wow, that's a very Cancer link.
Skeptics of US and European-led projects say they're aimed at specifically targeting
He didn't say that. Come on, Michael. Yes, he did. You fucking dumbass. He said it on his dumb Insta stories.
Influence rather than working with African countries as business partners. And they lack specific information that have many wondering whether or not they'll result in...
How would defamation work if Hassan hasn't suffered a loss of viewership or opportunities? He could just, I don't know. I mean, he has. You don't have to show an absolute decline. Reputational harm is good. There's no way he saw Hassan's mom and thought she was a Mexican maid. Yes, that's what he thought. Let me see. I wanna make sure we have the exact post. The exact post. Fuck. I want to read it because I don't. Okay, here it is. I found it. Oh no, this isn't it. I'll take that a step further. I bet that Ethan Klein, the capitalist, pays his housekeeper more than Hassan. Ours has health insurance, vision, dental, 401k, paid vacation and sick days, plus a very good salary. I'll donate $100,000 to charity if Hassan can prove he pays his housekeeper more than me. This isn't the post. Wait, hold on. Ew, I don't want to click. Ew, I don't want to see his story. I don't want a direct link. Don't give direct links to Ethan Klein in my chat. Ew.
Significant action in Africa.
When you talk to the Chinese, they will tell you that we have come a long way with Africa, both culturally and economically. We have had similar problems as Africa, and we want to help them grow because they were in a position where we were. In Africa, the Africans will tell you we need the money. We have a huge infrastructure gap, and it doesn't matter whether the money is blue or red. As long as it can do the job, we will accept it. When we talk to, some of the economists that follow China and the African governments, they will tell you that there has been benefit for these projects overall for Africa. How they have been done, the terms, as well as how these projects have been got, is another story.
You're linking me a mega thread, bro. You're linking me a mega thread. What are you linking me a mega thread for? What is this? Stop linking mega threads. That doesn't do anything. It doesn't mean anything. Thank you, someone, for doing the work. Holy shit. No, I met her. She's a lovely Hispanic lady, doesn't speak English. She cleans and cooks, works full-time, I believe. Hassan grunts and uses Google to talk to her. She seems to not be his utopian socialist pay plan where everyone is entitled to the means of their production. She frees up a ton of time for Hassan to stream, works at his home, and is very clearly part of his production. He could be entitled to a percent of his profits by his own logic. Judging from what I saw, she's probably making slightly above minimum wage. It just shows the obvious hypocrisy and total insincerity of Hassan's socialism. He tells everyone that visits to never mention her for obvious reasons because he knows it makes him look like a charlatan. I don't care about sharing anything confidential, as he's pretty clearly expressed our friendship was a farce. Small example of why Hassan's community are naive as fuck. I really think his mom is the one cooking all that chicken, as if she's not a sentient being with a life of her own. They think she's there in his house 24/7, day in and day out, cooking all of his meals, as she has no life, friends, plans, or activities of her own. If anything, it's disrespectful and not very woke to assume his mother's nothing more than a meal machine like that. Ethan obviously implied Hassan told him he has a personal chef that he doesn't want people to know about. I had to admire Ethan for failing just short of outright stating it, seeing as that he was told to him in confidence, even if it was a dirtbag like Hassan. Just thinking out loud really how gullible and stupid they are. Makes me laugh how many Hassan fans hang out in the sub just to downvote stuff they don't like. I haven't gone near Hassan's sub since I stopped watching him months ago. Thank you, Vio, for the pie. Be nice to the chatters is what she's telling me. Sorry being mean to the chatters for linking me mega threads. H3 Productions. Ethan Klein's housekeeper sues him for being treated horrifically. Ethan Klein, oh yeah? Well, who's gonna cook Hassan's chicken then? Since we're talking about Ethan Klein, bad empanada debunking Ethan's lies about Hassan. This will be fun. The fun part about this is if they tried to make a clip of this and watch it on Ethan's stream, they would edit out bad empanada because they're scared of bad empanada, which tells you everything you need to know.
Saudi propaganda. So I just want to make some shorter clips here, going over some of the most egregious parts of Ethan Klein's supposed content nuke. And I'm going to start out here with Ethan Klein doing Saudi Arabian propaganda. So Ethan Klein, in his video, he was really desperate to sort of paint the Houthis in the worst light possible. And in doing so, he cited outright like Saudi propaganda they created to legitimize them massacring, maiming, and starving the people of Yemen in their decade-plus-long US-backed assault on the country. So if you don't know, the Saudi Arabians intervened in Yemen against the Houthi-led anti-government rebellion, which started during the Arab Spring. And they have just been like wantonly bombing the country the whole time. They have been blockading it, starving it. They have been responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people minimum. And all this time, they have been supported by the US and to a lesser extent by Israel. And Ethan Klein, in all of his wisdom, in his desperation to try and make the Houthis look horrible, he ended up just uncritically citing propaganda as well as misciting 10-year-old articles to claim that they reintroduced slavery. So I want to show you that. There are two articles in particular that he cited that are just directly Saudi state propaganda. It's ironic as well that throughout the supposed content nuke, he claims that Hassan Piker...
The country that did 9/11, that country that supports ISIS, our ally...
being paid to make it by like the Houthis, you know, the government of one of the poorest countries in the world are apparently paying like a millionaire in Los Angeles to do propaganda for them, which, you know, doesn't really square when you consider the reason to suspect Ethan Klein of being paid to do that for the Saudi government, given that the Saudis are well known for doing precisely that. You know, things like sports washing, paying celebrities to like go to their country and like talk about how great it is and stuff like that. Like The Rock does that, for example. Cristiano Ronaldo does that. I think even Lionel Messi does it. Plenty of celebrities who do that, who they pay to do that for them. And now we have Ethan Klein suddenly just citing like Saudi government made up propaganda to which they use to like justify them massacring the Yemeni people over the last 10 years. So let me show you what I mean. The first direct Saudi propaganda that he cites, and he might have even cited more, I want to make clear here, I suspect that he cited more. I did not check literally every single headline, because his whole thing is that he flashes a headline on the screen for like a half a second, just like rapid fire 20 in a row, just hoping that no one actually looks them up. So let me show you.
They've also set up landmines in agricultural spots, making the fields virtually worthless. Women have...
Landmines in agricultural spots making the fields virtually worthless. That's an interesting claim, isn't it? So let's check that out. So the headline here is Yemen Army removes 300,000 Houthi landmines in liberated areas. Now, you can immediately tell there's something weird here, because it's like citing the Yemen Army saying this, and the Yemen Army is the Saudi-backed deeply unpopular Yemeni government that basically the entire country rebelled against. So that's already a bit weird, right? It also doesn't say anything about agricultural areas. So let's check out the actual article. So looking at the article itself, it doesn't actually say anything at all regarding agricultural areas and making the land useless. Ethan literally he made that up completely. It's not even here in this article, which, to be clear, is Saudi propaganda. So this article
The evidence
does nothing
is
but...
there's a single truck with mines in it. According to army officials in Yemen, the country has been subjected to the largest mine-laying operation since the end of the Second World War. International human rights groups have previously condemned Iran-backed Houthi militias for their use of the banned anti-personnel landmines in Yemen that have caused numerous civilian casualties. Hey, chat, you know who's using lots of landmines? Ukraine. Oh, okay, that's fine. Never mind. Let's move on.
But cite the Yemeni government itself, who obviously are just going to say bad things about the Houthis or their opponents. And it's from April 20th.
Hey, you know who else uses landmines? Israel and the United States.
2018, which is at the height of the Saudi genocide in Yemen. Basically, this is genocide-enabling propaganda, particularly when you look up what Arab News is. Let's look up this outlet. Who is Arab News? Arab News is an English-language newspaper published in Saudi Arabia, and it is owned by Turki bin Salman Al Saud, the brother of the ruling crown prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. The newspaper promotes the Saudi government. This is Ethan Klein's source. A Saudi government propaganda outlet just printing anti-Houthi propaganda that based on nothing but the government of the people who the Houthis are fighting against said so. This is one of the greatest minds of our time, clearly. But don't worry, there's more to this. There's worse. Ethan Klein.
It's literally just propaganda based on the word of the government. There's no evidence. So Ethan Klein just randomly Googled something and then brought an article up. I can write articles and publish them called, I can make Israel news and just start making articles. If there's not actually traced to a direct source that can be objectively evaluated. It's propaganda, Spillington, you dumb fuck. If you can't look at this and realize, oh yeah, Ethan Klein was kind of lazy here, you need to go back to school. Open the schools. Open the fucking schools for this guy. You don't know how to evaluate evidence.
Claims that the Houthis brought back slavery. Check
You're
this.
a Google search away to some historical videos on this guy. Wait, what's the historical videos that you're gonna find for me? What's the historical videos you're gonna find? You're gonna find 6-year-old videos with me with an X that have been saved by Destiny, so you could watch these 6-year-old videos of me with an X. That's what you're gonna find. That's what you're gonna find. That's the historical videos. That's the historical videos. Okay. Have you seen the historical videos of Ethan Klein when he weighed 300 pounds and was screaming the N-word? Those are the historical videos I'll find of Ethan Klein.
This part out.
Oh, I almost forgot the most fun one. They brought back slavery.
The evidence of this is 2 articles, and 1 article rather, and 1 video. A video called Slavery in Yemen from Al Jazeera World, and an article called Exclusive, Houthis Restore Slavery in Yemen, which curiously does not actually include who it's from. So let's look first at the Al Jazeera World one. Interestingly enough, if you go to the page where this documentary is from, and you scroll down to the date, which was cut off by Ethan Klein, you see that it's from the 10th of September 2014, and you see that from the text here, despite government denials, this investigation uncovers evidence of slave labor in Yemen. Now, we might ask the question, who was the government of Yemen in 2014? Was it the Houthis? No! It was the Saudi-backed government. This article is not about the Houthis, it's about the Saudi-backed government. If anything, this is pro-Houthi propaganda, because these are the people who the Houthis fought against. But if you thought that was bad, just wait for this. Exclusive. Houthis restore slavery in Yemen. So this is an article by Arshak Al-Awsat. Exclusive. Houthis restore slavery in Yemen. Modern slavery is prevalent in Yemeni regions under the control of Iran-backed Houthi militias. Sources close to the group told us that civilians have been forced into slavery by the Houthis. The Houthis are working tirelessly to restore slavery in Yemen. Several local reports have confirmed this. Yemeni activists have revealed this. They told us. A civilian who works for a pro-Houthi leader told us that he has been a slave for years without pay. And then experts confirmed that the Houthis have been forcing civilians into slavery. Wow, those are some really great sources. It's someone told us, we swear we didn't make this up. Someone told us, we swear we didn't make this up. Someone told us, we swear we didn't make this up. Like 5 times over. That's interesting sourcing there. Even despite any sort of bias of the newspaper, that's obviously just a complete nothing burger. I can't believe I said that. I wonder why this newspaper would just say stuff like that so brazenly based on nothing except trust us, bro. I wonder why. I'll tell you why. I don't actually wonder, I know why. Because this newspaper, Arshak Al-Awsat, was founded with the approval of the Saudi royal family and government ministers. It is noted for its support of the Saudi government. The newspaper is owned by Faisal bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, a member of the Saudi royal family. Ethan Klein is just citing like the Saudi equivalent of Der Stürmer, just making shit up that was invented to justify the Saudi massacre and starvation blockade against Yemen. He is citing this uncritically to slander the people who were fighting against the illegitimate Saudi-backed dictatorship as restoring slavery. And his incredible evidence for that is this like article from the Saudi...
So, why does Ethan Klein do this? The answer is he doesn't care about Yemen, obviously. Obviously, Ethan Klein doesn't care about Yemen. What he's trying to do is destroy Hassan. He has a narrative he wants to push. Hassan is supporting he's supporting these evil organizations that are the enemies of the United States. He's supporting terrorism. This is why these groups are bad. Flash a bunch of articles on the screen that are all Saudi propaganda, not based on anything that's sourceable, not that it's based on anything that you can check, and counting on his audience being lazy and stupid to believe it all. Now, Saudi Arabia was committing a genocide against Yemen. They were targeting these groups, targeting civilians. Bernie Sanders, a bunch of mainstream Democrats were calling for cutting off American military assistance to Saudi Arabia over this war. That's how bad the war crimes were. All right? It isn't like my idea that, oh, I'm a crazy leftist and only I think fighting the Houthis are bad. No, the way that the Saudi Arabia was treating Yemen, the genocide they were committing in Yemen was kind of a preview of the way that Israel is treating Gaza. If you think Saudi Arabia is a good source for evidence, you're insane. And so this is Ethan Klein in a nutshell. This is why Ethan Klein is not worth listening to. This is why Ethan Klein is obsessed with discrediting Hassan, because why? Because Hassan calls Israel out for the crimes they commit in Gaza, while Ethan Klein calls Yoav Gallant, indicted war criminal, as a good guy. Because to Ethan Klein, Arabs just are, and Muslims are just kind of violent. They have a tendency to do violence. And you can't trust them with democracy. You can't trust them with rights. That's what Ethan Klein has said. And it's crazy that he tries to get off by doing this cry-bullying bullshit.
Equivalent of Joseph Goebbels just made up bullshit. We swear, sources told us this. Ethan Klein uncritically cites that. That's good enough for him. And a documentary made by Al Jazeera from 2014, which was actually about the previous government that the Houthis...
Okay, Buckmeister says, I asked 10 times if I could link stuff. No one answers. Why do we care? Why do we care? Okay, I think that you need 10 minutes to think about good faith.
Have overthrown, reinstituting slavery themselves. Let's all give Ethan Klein a round of applause.
I'm desperate for an Ethan Klein or a Destiny fan or a conservative that actually has a brain. Like, actually could say, like, here's the evidence that I would like you to take a look at. What do you think? They can't even do it.
A round of applause. I'm sure he's certainly not being paid by Saudi propagandists to make this. Excellent work, Ethan Klein.
I literally found a post of Destiny years ago that used the exact same Houthi slavery sources Ethan Klein used. Oh my God, this is where Ethan Klein got his research. This is where Ethan Klein got his research. Here it is. This is exactly where he got it. Even Ethan, oh my God, even Destiny's, there's plenty of things to criticize the Houthis with it for. However, calling them colonizing slavers is using two pretty shaky accusations for bombastic effects rather than something with more solid backing. You've went over the colonizer bit yourself, while accusations of slavery have almost all come from fairly openly biased Gulf Arab sources. This type of thing, even fucking Destiny viewers in the fucking link of the article that Ethan Klein used are saying it's shaky. Oh my God. Oh my God, you're so fucking stupid. Even DGGers are like, this evidence is shit. Oh my God. Ethan Klein is stupider than a DGGer. He's subnormal. Oh my God. Oh my fucking God, he's so stupid. That's incredible.
His favorite lobotomized individual.
Oh my God. All right, on to the next one.
Hello, everyone. And
before we continue, chat, Baden Panada.
Saudi.
Listen, my feeling about Baden Panada is this. If he's mad at you, you probably deserve it, honestly. You probably fucked up along the way. Kind of like, it is what it is. Reflect.
Hello, everyone, and welcome.
If he's going after you, you probably kind of deserve it a little bit.
Welcome back to my short little series about Ethan Klein's hilariously ridiculous claims made in his content nuke. So, multiple times during this video...
That's hilarious. That's fucking hilarious, dude. Oh my God. Ethan Klein just searched Houthi on Destiny's subreddit and then put it in the nuke. What a pathetic loser.
Klein accuses Hassan Piker of being paid.
Hassan is lying for the Houthis like he's being paid. And honestly, at this point, is he?
That's a pretty interesting claim to make.
Like, at this point, is he? God, he's dumber than dirt. This is honestly like middle school level research project. Post your video on YouTube and give the teacher your link.
Paid by the Houthis, like the barely functional new government of Yemen, one of the poorest countries in the world, are paying a millionaire living in Beverly Hills, or I don't know. Maybe he doesn't live in Beverly Hills. Maybe there's like another stereotypical Los Angeles neighborhood. All I know is that there was once a show called Beverly Hills 90210 that was about rich people, and that's why I say Beverly Hills.
No, he literally lives in Beverly Hills. He literally lives in Beverly Hills. He lives in the rich part of LA, and he says that he goes to Rodeo Drive, which is a famously overpriced, touristy, kind of like bougie fucking shopping street. It's where you basically, if you tried to buy a t-shirt on a Rodeo Drive, it costs $500. Okay. Like, that's where he says the locals shop. No, he is a disgusting piece of shit.
Correct me down in the comments below if I'm wrong.
And Hassan doesn't live in Beverly Hills. Hassan lives in West Hollywood, which I'm not leaking anything, which is, in LA. You know, that's where the LA experience is.
Either way, what are the chances that the Houthis are paying a Twitch millionaire to do propaganda for them? Ethan Klein. But there is someone who is being paid by terrorists. It's Ethan Klein. This video by Ethan Klein is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Now, my knowledge of sponsorship rate is based on what I get offered, what I demand. So my rate, if I get a sponsorship, the first thing that I will throw out is I want $2.5K US dollars for 100,000 views. That is like my baseline. If they offer less than that, I might go for it. You know, if I don't really have any other offers lined up. But that's like the baseline that I will ask for. So Ethan Klein's video here has more than 2 million views. So let's just say 2 million. And let's be generous here, and let's say that he only asked for 1.5K per 100,000 views. So that would mean that the sponsorship for this video would have gotten him at least $30,000. Quite a hefty sum, right? I think that's a gross underestimate, really, for a video of this many views. I would say it's at least 50,000 is what you would really expect for a channel of his size that can expect to get like 2 million views per video. So this video, as I said, sponsored by ExpressVPN. You can see it in the description. You can see it in his little ad spot here.
Thank you to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this video.
There you go. Thank you to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this video. Now, this video is basically a very lazily, shittily crafted piece of pro-Israel, pro-IDF, pro-genocide propaganda. And you might ask, is Ethan being paid for this? Is he being paid to do propaganda? Well, unlike his claims against Hassan Parker being paid by the Houthis, we actually do have evidence that he is indeed being paid to do this by Zionist billionaires. ExpressVPN is a company which is a subsidiary of Cape Technologies, a company wholly owned by Israeli billionaire Teddy Sagi. Let's look up what Teddy Sagi does. Teddy Sagi, Israeli billionaire. Teddy Sagi has a long history of working closely with the IDF. In 2019, he donated $3 million to fund hundreds of academic scholarship for discharged Israeli soldiers. Those are terrorists. Israeli soldiers are all terrorists, so that's $3 million to terrorists. Great sponsor. Sagi attended the Friends of the IDF Gala, where he and his family donated another $3 million. In Sagi's businesses, including ExpressVPN, he makes a point of giving jobs specifically to former IDF terrorists. Teddy Sagi also sponsors, get this, Ben Shapiro's The Daily Wire. And get this, in November 2023, during the height of the Gaza genocide, Teddy Sagi donated 1 million Israeli shekels.
There is no way that ExpressVPN is not directly connected to the Mossad. Anybody who connects to ExpressVPN is connected directly to Mossad. Israel knows every single thing you went to. They know everything you did. And they probably have it in a file with your name on it. And if you ever do anything to piss them off, they'd probably just pull the file and look at it and go, how do we release this to the public? I would cancel immediately if you have an ExpressVPN and uninstall everything. I would probably format my computer if I had ExpressVPN on my computer.
Which is the equivalent of $300,000 to give taxi rides to the genocidal soldiers massacring Gazan children, they especially like to kill babies, to help them get to and from the front lines faster and while spending less money to do so. Everyone give Ethan Klein a hand for his terrorist-funded propaganda, literally paid by a billionaire Israeli Zionist terrorist funder, someone who donates money to the objectively terrorist IDF group, guilty of genocide, guilty of baby massacre, guilty of mass rape. Ethan Klein took a sponsorship from that guy to make a piece of very shitty, shoddy, pro-Israel propaganda, in which he laughably accuses others of being paid to peddle terrorist propaganda. You can't fucking make it up.
All right, chat, remember, like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on, and whenever you see a bad input on a video, you click it, and you watch it through, and you do everything you can to support this man.
Hello everyone, I'd like to welcome you again to this week's incredible video series of showing the worst moments in
ExpressVPN does mess with your computer's registry too. Yeah, that's definitely, I mean, Mossad backdoor, put into your computer instantly.
Ethan Klein's pro-Israel propaganda video, which he called the content nuke against Hassan Piker. So now we're going to be covering Ethan Klein attempting to prove that the anti-genocide blockade carried out by the government of Yemen against Israeli and allied shipping in order to put pressure on them to stop their support and carrying out of a genocide. We're going to look at how badly he fucked up his supposed rebuttal to that. His supposed proof that this blockade was terrible. Let's take a look at his incredible rebuttal here. Now, Ethan knows that if the ships that are being stopped by the Houthis are linked to Israel or its allies, then his argument here isn't going to hold up. So what he does is he just flashes like a Wikipedia excerpt on the screen, which of course he doesn't actually cite in any reasonable way. He doesn't even crop it properly. Like the word ship is just fucking cut off here. Great professional editing skills you got there, dude. But let's see his reading of this.
The next claim is that it's owned by an Israeli company. It's not. It's being chartered by a Japanese company, and the boat's owners are registered in the Isle of Man.
So let's take an actual look at what he just showed on the screen there. So firstly, I am absolutely gobsmacked that Ethan Klein sees a company registered in the Isle of Man. He's like, yep, that's actually a company that's really from the Isle of Man. If you don't know, the Isle of Man is this small island. It's like a territory of Great Britain that has a population of 80,000. Now, I personally find it difficult to believe that a country with a population of 80,000 would actually have like a bunch of legitimate businesses there that are worth billions of dollars. You might find that a bit hard to believe as well. And the reason why this company is registered there is not because it's actually from the Isle of Man. Like, it's because the Isle of Man is a tax haven with no capital gains tax, no wealth tax, no stamp duty, no inheritance tax. And it even has a tax cap of only $200,000 per person. So that's why you have businesses registered in the Isle of Man. That's why the ship is flying the flag of the Isle of Man. And he also skips over the end here, right? So the company registered in the Isle of Man is...
And basically, the best way to understand this is the international capitalist class, right? They don't want to pay for the taxes of the U.S. Navy, right? Like, how do these maritime shipping company that we're now spending in the U.S. Navy to go and protect the shipping lane? Who pays for that? You do. The American taxpayer, the American worker. While this Israeli billionaire flags his ship in the Isle of Man, and then when he sails by the Houthis, who does he call? The Isle of Man? No, he calls fucking America. And we're expected to go out there and keep the shipping lanes open so these genocidal maniacs can sail right next to Yemen without any consequences. And then they don't even pay taxes to our country. This is what I'm fighting against. And this is what Ethan Klein loves this. Ethan Klein thinks this is great. He loves this idea.
Called Galaxy Maritime Ltd, and they are the owners of the ship. And the beneficial owners of this company are Abraham Ungar and Yael Ungar. So Abraham Ungar is a billionaire Israeli businessman, and Yael Ungar is his wife. So this is an Israeli company registered in the Isle of Man for tax purposes, and Ethan Klein is trying to claim that it's really an Isle of Man company. Like, what would you even call something from the Isle of Man? Like Manish? Let's say that. Manish, this island that's only known for having like a street motorcycle race where 10 people die per year. Yeah, that's definitely the real home of like this global shipping company owned by an Israeli millionaire, dude. It's obviously an Israeli ship, and the reason why he ignores this, he doesn't even give us the courtesy of dishonestly cutting that off. He just leaves it there and debunks himself. He just shows us the owners are Israeli on the screen. He just doesn't say it and hopes that you don't notice. It's insane. It's obviously an Israeli company registered in the Isle of Man. He then goes on to make more blatant factual errors.
I'd like to remind everybody that the crew that's kidnapped in this video has been missing for over a year now with zero updates on their health, whereabouts, or anything. That lines up with leftist values.
So he claims that the crew of the ship are missing. No one knows where they are. There's been no updates on their health or anything. This simply isn't true because the International Committee of the Red Cross visited the crew twice. They took video and photos of them. They spoke to them. They verified that they are in good health. They knew precisely where they are. They knew precisely how they are. And literally weeks before this video was released, the crew was released as a result of the ceasefire between the Palestinian Hamas group and Israel and the US. No one in the crew was harmed. Everyone was unconditionally released with no demand for anything in return aside from the ceasefire. The crew was, as I said, visited multiple times by the International Committee of the Red Cross. Their well-being had been verified by international bodies multiple times. Ethan is just fucking lying. Like, this happened.
But why even lie? Like, it's crazy to even lie about this. Like, this shows you how evil Ethan is and how he's such a lazy propagandist freak. Why is he even lying about this? Just say the Houthis captured these guys and they held them captive for a year. And the answer is because the Israeli argument that Ethan Klein is spreading is that the Houthis are irrational terrorists who are like rabid dogs, and they're not really attacking these ships, these Israeli ships, to block Israel from, to blockade Israel. They're not attacking these Israeli ships to put pressure on Israel to end the war in Gaza. They're just doing it because they're pirates and they're evil and they're like, and we need to kill them because they can't be reasoned with. They're subnormal. They're subhuman. You know, they're not doing this because of a rational reason that therefore we can engage in diplomacy with them and talk to them and convince them to stop in exchange for concessions. No. These are just vermin that need to be destroyed. That's what they're trying to spread, right? And you need to let Israel do whatever it's doing. And not only do you need to help Israel commit genocide in Gaza, you need to help Israel and Saudi Arabia fight the Houthis in Yemen. Western countries, spend trillions of dollars of taxpayer dollars, put your young men and women in harm's way, fight another war for Israel. That's what Ethan Klein wants you to think. And the reality is the Houthis said openly, we're going to stop Israeli shipping from coming through the Red Sea to put pressure on Israel to stop the war in Gaza, to stop the genocide of the Palestinians. And when there was a ceasefire signed, what did the Houthis do? They immediately released these captives and said, okay, the war is over, and here is our good faith effort to comply with the ceasefire that has been agreed to. Now, I'm not a Houthi supporter, but you can clearly see that he had to lie about that to create the myth that the only way to treat these enemies of Israel is with war, that's what Ethan Klein supports. Ethan Klein wants America to go to war against Iran, probably. Why don't we ask him? I don't know. Maybe he doesn't support a war on Iran. Most big supporters of Israel do support a war on Iran. The Israeli government wants the United States to fight a war on Iran. But this is the reality of the situation that we're facing, which is Ethan Klein just blatantly lies about shit, lazily, without even bothering to do what amounts to a Google search. This isn't him going into the archives. This isn't him going to a library and going through the microfiche and hiring a research librarian to help him pull together evidence. This is him going, Houthi rebel galaxy leader. He can't even be expected to do that. Pathetic.
Weeks before he released this video, and even before he started making this video, there's clear articles talking about them being visited multiple times by the Red Cross. Pictures of them when they were visited by the Red Cross. So Ethan Klein quite simply lied here multiple times in multiple ways. Lied about the ship being Israeli and lied about the treatment of the crew, lied about knowledge of their whereabouts, lied about basically everything because he knows ultimately that you can't defend being against a blockade against an Israeli ship while Israel does genocide. You can't defend that. So you just got to make a bunch of shit up. You just got to pretend the ship wasn't Israeli. You just got to pretend the crew was being mistreated. You just got to imply that like no one even knows where they are. They could be dead when everyone knew precisely where they are the whole time, and they were released literally the second that a ceasefire was agreed. Just another exemplar in Ethan Klein being a lying, moronic, lobotomized POS.
We love Bad and Panada, don't we, folks? We love Bad and Panada, don't we, folks? We watch the video, and when we watch the video, what we find out is Ethan Klein is dumber than fucking dirt. He's a moron. He's a dipshit. Wait, there's 9 now? How many content nuked destroyeds are there? Okay. Bad and Panada did an incredible video on liberal Zionism and Owen Jones you must watch.
18-year-old girl that's studying they-them studies at Columbia. What is she gonna do?
But what you might not,
she's actually gonna kill America? You
might not.
You think America is going to?
But just for the record, I don't like this argument that Adam's making. I think it's like super fucking shallow. It's like obviously, like I'm not afraid of an 18-year-old young girl, but
yes, you are. Yes, you are. You are afraid of an 18-year-old girl. You support censoring people for their beliefs. You're scared of Frogan. You're scared of denims. You're scared of young women disagreeing with you with their dangerous ideas. You are the same as any other fucking loser who's scared of actually having a conversation on the facts. You think that some ideas are so scary that if we look at the evidence, that everybody's brain is going to be altered. How about we look at the evidence and we deal with the facts, Ethan Klein? And we let your censorship regime, you unlettered moron who's never read a book, you don't get to decide what ideas are valid or what information gets restricted. I mean, I honest to God wouldn't be surprised if he outright calls for censoring the views of people he disagrees with.
There is like proliferation of ideas that spread from college campuses, like from students and to like larger communities. But I don't think either of them are talking about that. But I just think Adam's argument, which I've heard a lot of times, is like overly simplistic. Obviously, I'm not afraid of an 18-year-old girl. I would beat up any 18-year-old girl. What does he mean? Like physically? Like, I don't know what he's implying.
She's saying death to America. You think that an 18-year-old girl studying genders or whatever?
18-year-olds are the ones that are fighting all the wars. They're the ones spearheading like the movements in history. Like that. Like his point is totally weird. I'm coming down against Adam. I'm on Jesse's side.
Jesse Lee Peterson. Yeah, wow. Ethan Klein is on the side of Jesse Lee Peterson for wanting to censor people for criticizing Israel. Well, who knew? Who could have seen this coming? Ethan Klein is allying with the far right again? Who would have thunk? I can't believe I saw that coming.
Peterson, I might let you in.
I'm with Jesse, man.
Whatever is gonna
and AB struggling to find clips where Ethan doesn't look like a fucking scumbag, and he can't do it. He can't do it.
Kill like everyone. You think she can do death to America?
No.
It's kind of a little bit pussy to be like, I'm afraid of that.
And he's completely right. Ethan Klein, you're scared of college. First of all, I mean, it's just pathetic, dude.
Should not, and apparently cannot watch his video because Ethan Klein doesn't like people violating his copyright. Hassan.
Wait, was this like the big 5-head move? Was it the big 5-head meta? Was that like I watch it and then he hits me with a copy strike? Like, what is happening? Anyway, I don't know. I don't really care. I've moved on from this. I hope everyone else can as well eventually. Who knows? Ethan going anti-fair uses a real Fetterman move. Oh my God. Did he also get hit with a stroke gun that makes you more pro-Israel than you were prior?
I don't think you could tell if Ethan had a stroke. There's a lot of excess material in the brain that could, in the inside of his brain case that could die off, and you wouldn't see any decline of performance, intellectual performance. I think a lot of that brain is already atrophied. Alrighty, folks. That's incredible. All right, what else did I want to talk about today? Oh, Al Jazeera published a video called Eat the Rich. We love it, folks. We love it, don't we, folks? Eat the rich. I want to start a draft Sean Fain for President 2028 movement. Sean Fain for President 2028. He seems like the only person who can actually square the circle of being a left-winger while also not being annoying cringelord. Like, Sean Fain is the guy. There's no one else. Like, I've been thinking about all the other alternatives, and there's just no one else that I trust. No one else who's any good at this. Like, I've tried my hardest to be sympathetic toward AOC, but the social milieu she's in DC has got to be full of the most Warrenite liberals, because she just has nonstop bad takes at this point, and it's not good. I don't know if you saw Ethan's most recent Instagram stories saying he met Hassan's housekeeper, a lovely Hispanic lady. I think Ethan Klein is just being racist, like literally. Like, he doesn't know what Turkish people look like, so he's just calling Hassan's mom a Hispanic lady. Also, the idea of like he's just making bullshit accusations to distract from the fact he's being sued for being a terrible employer. What a fucking scumbag.
shall have nothing more to eat. They'll
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm sure they know this, but I'm gonna call up the attorneys of that lawsuit and let them know, just to make sure they're like, I'm assuming they're aware, but honestly, they might not be. And I think Ethan's like, you know, his show would be kind of useful for them. While you watch that, I'm gonna do that real quick.
The rich. The quote by French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau that summed up the spirit of the French Revolution is now trending online, with many demanding social justice be achieved through whatever means necessary. But what does eat the rich actually mean? I'm Annalise Borges, and this is The Stream.
Elon Musk's net worth just surpassed $400 billion, which is a historical high for the world's wealthiest man. If you're making $80,000 a year, it would take you 5 million years to make $400 billion.
If we're taking the temperature of the world right now, I'd say we're about 2 ticks away from off with their heads territory.
If you look at how much money these billionaires make, they don't need this much money.
Hey, this is a reminder that not all billionaires are the same. Some of them, like Elon Musk and Donald Trump, are going to be higher in fat content, and some of them, like Zuckerberg and Bezos, are going to be leaner and more gamey.
I'm too own a thing, not land all the words I sing, praise the man. I'll starve to death cleaning your swimming pool and die of thirst in the pouring rain.
While the rich get richer, millions are struggling to get by. The World Bank says that, in fact, the wealth of the world's billionaires grew by $2 trillion last year. Meanwhile, about 700 million people, almost 10% of the global population, live in extreme poverty. That's with under $2.15 a day. Even in wealthy countries like the US, many regular people are being forced to make impossible choices, like either paying for medicine or buying groceries. Is the growing divide between the ultra-rich and the average citizen the driving force behind this call for change? Joining me to discuss this are John Pabon, a sustainability author, UN advisor, and content creator in Melbourne; Albina Alieva, a self-professed child of privilege and the founder of the Privileged Few channel. She's joining us from Boston; Darren Camphor, an entrepreneur and socioeconomic and political content creator in Cape Town; and Madison Hill, a content creator in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Thank you all so much for your time today. Thank you for being part of the stream. Albina, on what you do and why, we wanted to introduce your online persona first, for those who may not know you. Take a look.
It's time for a rich kid confession. I'm 26 years old and Daddy still pays most of my bills. When people find out that I can call my dad and ask him for a new car, money, or a much needed
All right,
vacation.
chat. I gave a call over to her. I gave a call. I talked to them, and they're going to be looking into it. I just figured no one would actually reach out to the attorneys and be like, "Hey, the guy you're suing is like defaming your client and talking about the case, so you should probably take a look at that." So I gave them a heads up. I mean, personally, the way I feel is, like, if you're being sued, you're allowed to speak about your case. No one is stopping you. But you just have to be very careful that you're perfectly consistent. And you don't say one thing in one place and another thing in another place, because then your credibility is shot. And, you know, even if you didn't intend to dissemble or you didn't intend to lie, you know, we don't speak precisely. Always. You know, sometimes we shade things one way or the other, or we forget to mention something, or we do things out of order. Memory is an organically changing thing. And so, you know, that's why keeping your mouth shut is a good idea, just because, you know, even if you're even if you're correct and right, it's important.
They are trying to shame me, but the thing is, I've never been ashamed of being a rich kid.
Off social media, you come across as a bit more reasonable than that, I must say. Can you tell us about your notion?
Can I get that deleted button footage in Discovery? I mean, yeah, if it exists, sure.
Of privilege, and some of the things you share online, like rich dad advice. What made you decide to create this type of content?
That was quite an entrance. You guys chose probably my favorite video, so thank you for that. The big problem which we're
witnessing. The privileged few does an interview in her kitchen? The privileged few does an interview in a kitchen, a small kitchen? This is the privileged few?
Today is inequality. And what I've been noticing is that before, people from different financial backgrounds, they would live on the same streets or even send their children to the same school.
I missed what she was saying, Chad, so I don't know if she was being sarcastic. I'm sorry.
But now
I was talking
there is more and more
lawyers.
segregation. And the problem is that money is held by the privileged few, but there is also gatekeeping of knowledge. So I decided that I want to make Rich Dad advice accessible for all. And one of those examples is, for example, a trust fund. So mainstream media makes it seem like trust funds are only for ultra wealthy. But in reality, it's a great tool to start building your generational wealth. So we want to make those knowledges more accessible for all, because we strongly believe that the more people succeed, the better it is for all of us.
And yeah, that's definitely something particular about you. Even the fact that you actually know your privilege makes you different from other rich kids, I would say. But we're gonna talk more about that. John, you actually have a series on TikTok about the title of today's show, actually, Eat the Rich. And I want to ask you about who exactly you mean by the rich. Here's one online user with one disclaimer that I want to see if you agree with. Take a look.
When you're talking about eat the rich, who exactly do you mean? I'll go first. When I talk about eat the rich, I am not talking about you. I'm not talking about me. I'm not talking about your pediatrician. I'm not talking about most attorneys or even most celebrities. I'm not talking about people who make $500,000, $1 million, maybe even $2 million a year. The people who I'm talking about are the people who have at least 9 figures in assets. These are people where it doesn't make sense for them to bend down and pick up $100 bill off the floor.
I don't know. I think if you've got like
because it's just
50 million, you're in the group too, personally.
It's not worth their time. This is the 1% of the 1%. As far as I'm concerned, the rest of us are in the same boat. We are all closer to each other than we are to them.
John, do you agree? Is that a fair statement?
No, absolutely a fair statement. Thanks for having me, by the way, as well. And I think when we think of what the ultra wealthy are, if we think of, say, the top 10%, we hear that a lot. The top 10% around the world, if you just take global averages, equates to a net worth of about $135,000 US. So that may not be everybody watching and listening to this, but it probably would shock a few people to know that that's sort of where the bar is. But for me, just like what that other commenter said in the video, it's really the people that are sort of on the Who Run or the Forbes rich list. So the top 2,500 net wealth holders in the entire world. But even within that, I look at it through a smaller lens of those that have a big discrepancy between the things they say they're doing versus the things that they're actually doing with the wealth that they have. So it's a little bit of a narrower focus than just all the ultra wealthy, although we could certainly talk about every single one of those 2,700 people and certainly pick them apart.
And obviously, you mentioned Forbes, and the Forbes list, it doesn't include everyone. It doesn't include, I don't know, political wealth and dictators, etc. So we are talking about some people, but there's still so much more wealth out there. And I think that is, I guess, where the anger comes from and these calls to eat the rich. Darren, now that we've established roughly who we're talking about, what about this other saying that we come across a lot online, where there's no such a thing as an ethical billionaire? Truth or myth?
It's definitely the truth, because...
well, first of all, even if I made $1 billion just through the sweat of my brow, let's just assume for a second that I'm the most productive human being to ever live, and I legitimately produce $1 billion of wealth. There is something called the diminishing marginal utility of money. That means that you get to a certain amount of money, and then an additional dollar toward you doesn't make you any happier. It doesn't give you any utility. So then it would be ethical for me to say, hey, I may be entitled to this dollar, but please use it on somebody who needs it, where this dollar will go to raise their utility, their happiness, society's happiness, society's productivity. Because for me, that money is fucking meaningless now. It can't help me anymore. It's just a number on a balance sheet. That is, so even if I made $1 billion, which is not true, they don't make $1 billion from the sweat of their own brow. They make it by taking little slices from everyone else and their productivity. But even if I did, it still would be wrong to give me more money. I have enough. I have enough. I have enough. My kids have enough. My great grandkids have enough. I have generational wealth. Anybody that I want will never have to work again. It would still be wrong to give me $1 more.
I suppose if you were to, by some miracle of nature, manage to accrue $1 billion in wealth in a planet or even a country that's as unequal as the one that I live
okay. He's about to make the point I made.
in, withholding those kind of resources or that access to resource is definitely an unethical way to exist. You would have the wealth to significantly change people's access to healthcare, access to food, access to water, access to clothing, education, housing, and to just hold on to that access to resources because you feel that you've earned it is in itself unethical, irrespective of how you might have accrued that wealth.
Yeah, even if you did acquire that wealth in a fair way, which in today's system, it's quite exceptional. Madison, the issue here really seems to be inequality, right? More than anything, I think that's the key idea. The problem is not that money is abundant, but the concentration of it in very few hands. Would you say that that is the key of the concept behind this trend?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that there is definitely a growing awareness of the fact that we have in existence a lot more resources than most people have access to in their day-to-day life. And I think that the internet has really been a big part of kind of showing people different perspectives and kind of starting to raise awareness around that.
The massive wealth and power gap has been indeed more evident than ever in recent years, and social media users have a lot to do with that, but they have also been confused at times about some of the notions around this concept, like, for example, late-stage capitalism. Here's Jassim with a breakdown of some very important ideas. Take a look.
Having your bathroom breaks timed, told off just for leaning. Every aspect of your day monitored for efficiency. Being treated...
What is this? Ethan Klein's home? What is this? Are you an Ethan Klein housekeeper? You expect to be able to lean? There's Teddy Fresh to clean up.
Worse than Warehouse of Robots. This is how an Amazon worker described his working conditions in a piece for The Guardian newspaper. According to many users online, this is a perfect example of a late-stage capitalism. The term was popularized by Belgian Marxist economist Ernest Mandel. He divided the development of capitalism into 3 stages. First was a period of freely competitive capitalism. People with the money and means were free to compete in producing goods. This period led to the growth of industrial capital within countries. Second came monopoly capitalism. Having created monopolies within their countries, producers turned their focus outward. They pushed for imperialism and colonialism, opening new markets to exploit. The third and final stage is late capitalism, or late-stage capitalism. This stage emerged out of World War II and has several defining features. Markets and labor are globalized, with the same multinational companies buying and selling resources in countries around the world. So are we living late-stage capitalism now, or will our world become even more capitalistic in the future?
John, I guess I want to put that question to you. Where are we in these concepts, and do you think people are aware of them?
I don't think people are as aware as we may hope they are. So if we look at, for example, consumer packaged goods, so the things that we buy at the grocery store, of all the things that are in there, about 90% of them are controlled by just 10 parent conglomerate companies. That is a massive amount of control in the hands of just a few people. And at the top of those companies are, again, ultra-wealthy folks that sit on the Forbes rich list. You have the folks like the Mars family, who are a very secretive, ultra-wealthy family. I think they sit at number 35 on the Forbes rich list, but they own Mars Confectionery, one of the biggest confectionery companies in the world. And this goes on and on. So again, this idea of control of things, and the late stage capital control by the hands of just a few people is a massive concern that a lot more people should be aware of.
And we're going to talk towards the end of the show about where this trend could go and if it could drive actual change. But before that, Albina, in one of your videos on the Privileged Few Productions channel, you say, and I'm quoting you, capitalism is a failed system that
trying
is
to
failing
take the heat off yourself after you're getting sued by a worker you wrongfully terminated by claiming Hassan as Hispanic nanny. Go over to cook and clean his house at all times is certainly a choice. I think he went to Hassan's house once. Like, Ethan Klein, I mean, no wonder he vibes with Destiny so much. Like, I get it now. I was like, when Ethan was like really his crashing out accelerated when Destiny got canceled. Like, that actually is the moment that his crash out intensified. His hatred of Hassan intensified. When it was clear that Destiny was like actually caught and was suffering like horrible consequences for the crimes he's committed, that's when Ethan Klein turned up the heat on Hassan himself. Like, he's crashing out because Destiny was taken out. He was the biggest Destiny fan. Oh my god. Oh my god, it makes so much sense. Like, that's what made him obsess over Hassan, because it looked like Hassan was winning and beating his enemies. So Ethan decided to step into the breach. That is funny.
So many of us coming from a rich kid like yourself, that is surprising. Can you tell us what you meant by that?
Yeah, just because I benefit from it, it doesn't mean that I don't understand that the system is only benefiting the privileged few. And I think this is exactly what is the biggest problem today, that people who already have so much money, they're the ones who are getting those high-paying jobs. For example, I was working in IT for 5 years, and what I realized there is that people who get to work in those fancy companies are people who graduated from fancy universities, who are paying for them. And in the end of the day, you only can get a high-paying job if you are able to pay for this university. And the problem in IT companies today is not even that there's not enough women. There are not enough people who are not rich kids. And I think that's why the system is failing so many of us.
And obviously, you come from a background of having lost some of your privilege as well. Do you want to share that briefly with us in terms of what happened to you growing up in Ukraine?
Yes, so I'm from Ukraine and I'm from the east of Ukraine. I was originally born and raised in Luhansk. So this is the city right at the border with Russia. And my dad, he had different types of businesses. So he thought that he's diversifying and that's why he's protecting us, but we never expected a war, right? So in 2014, when the war has started, half of his business was bombed, the other half just stopped operating. And that was the time, for the first time in my life, I was 16. I realized how privileged I used to be. And that's the thing about privilege. You only start noticing it when you don't have it. I think similar things apply to happiness. You only understand how happy you were once you're unhappy. But it made me really more grounded. It made me understand how privileged I used to be. And luckily, because my dad is a self-made businessman, he was able to build it back. But
Eastern European self-made businessman. Darlam, thank you for the 12 gifties and knocking us up to 200 on the day. That's a pretty nice payday for the day, chat.
But that was a very eye-opening experience. Prior to that, I actually thought that I would never get a job. And then in university, I started working and I realized how fulfilling it was. And I think it sucks that so many people only understand how privileged they are once that privilege is taken away. But I'm really grateful for that experience.
And thank you for sharing that with us, because it is indeed very personal. I want to go back to the trend now. And Darren, I want to share with you one clip we found online with the inconsistencies of this trend. Take a look.
People of this app who are doing the celebrity block trend where we're just straight up blocking these out of touch with reality celebrities, I commend you. Because listen, if there's anything that I'm good at, it's being a professional hater. But what about the ding-dongs in Washington who pass bills in the middle of the night that only benefit their geriatric dinosaur wallets? Could we not all get together and do something even crazier? Like, I don't know, maybe refuse to pay taxes, or maybe we pick a month where nobody spends a single dollar on a mega corporation who rakes in billions of dollars a year, but their own employees can't even afford rent.
Darren, can I get your take on whether this trend is really just about venting about the injustices in the world and exchanging knowledge, but doing nothing about it necessarily? Or do you see this as something more?
I think inevitably there's going to be stages to class consciousness. I think one of those initial stages is awareness. I wouldn't want to look down on the particular stage that anybody might be at. But blocking celebrities might be somebody's first stage of awareness, but we have to get to the point where, like the person in the video said, you have to cause some kind of disruption, whether that be financially or whether it be some other kind of systemic disruption. But the one thing we have to understand is that the only way you bring about systemic change is you have to cause some kind of disruption to the maintenance of the system. If it's just making a noise, it's fine, and it might annoy people and it's uncomfortable, but if people can still go to the same stores and still participate in the same system in the same way, nothing is going to change. And I think that we need to keep that in mind as we go through these various stages of class consciousness.
Class consciousness, that is something else that's been talked a lot online. And again, we've been talking about the fact that loads of people are waking up to this because of inequality. And Madison, on how people are actually really struggling, I wanted you to look at this short clip we found on social media, and then I'll ask you a question about it.
As someone who formerly worked as a crisis social worker, meaning I went to de-escalate people who were about to themselves and or others, it was 3 months. I quit after 3 months. But anyway, I know we were getting back to back calls. I was doing that job in 2021. So now that the economy is the crisis teams just waiting outside of people's houses just in case, because you're about to make houselessness illegal. The minimum wage don't make no sense. Nobody can get a job. When you ask people, do you feel like harming yourself and or others? I think that most people, if they were being honest, they would say yes.
We often think of America as this powerful, very rich country, but 11% of the population are actually living under the poverty line. That's 36 million people. Would you say, Madison, that their frustration or even anger is understandable today?
Yes, I absolutely think that it's understandable. And I agree with what one of the other commenters was saying before, is that there are different stages to activism, and that is an important first step. I think that what is so important is to be able to reach people with the information that they need to be able to channel their anger, because again, I think anger is a very natural and necessary reaction to what we're seeing happening right now all across the world. But anger that doesn't have a channel, I think, tends to turn into hatred or vindictiveness against whoever is nearby that you perceive as lesser than you. And so I think that that explains at least a part of what we're seeing happening in the United States right now, of a lot of misdirected anger that is kind of hindering kind of class consciousness and unity.
Would you say that that has to do with the political scene?
Yes, I do think it does.
I want to ask each one of you now for a look towards the possibilities in the future for this trend, because obviously this is a debate, is a big conversation happening online, but it is.
Did you see this unhinged shareholder call?
As always, we have a lot of individual investors on the line. Is there anything you'd like to say before we end?
We're doing it. We're doing it. And I'm sure you're enjoying this as much as I am. Let's not talk to analysts about the burden of being right, our burdens of investing in ontology, our burdens of actually looking at the math, the burden of reading what the Rule of 40 is, the burden of being honest about what an enterprise software company is, or the burden of explaining to your friends that you're really happy. Maybe we should just stop talking about it. I'm very happy to have you along for the journey, and you are partners for us. Every Palantirian, we are crushing it. Everyone else who's listening, we are dedicating our company. We have dedicated our company to the service of the West and the United States of America, and we're super proud of the role we play, especially in places we can't talk about. And we love our success in the U.S. and globally. Also, we are doing in the United Kingdom and many other places. Palantir is here to disrupt and make the institutions we partner with the very best in the world. when it's necessary to scare enemies and on occasion kill them. And we hope you're in favor of that. We hope you're enjoying being a partner, and we're really happy and very, very focused on what we're doing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That concludes Q&A for today.
Naming yourself after like the evil artifact that allowed the Dark Lord to see see where you are says quite a bit about who these people idealize themselves to be. They idealize themselves to be evil. Like, they get it. They get that they're on the wrong side. They get that they're bad, but they get their rocks off from getting away with it.
Even if it's not translating into any kind of action for now, as you all said, it is becoming knowledge, right? More and more people are growing aware of the numbers and just how much wealth there is and the concentration of it and how unfair perhaps that is. Albina, where do you see this trend going? You said yourself that the system has failed the majority. So where to from here?
I think for me personally, the biggest problem right now is not even businessmen, as many people think, but it's the lawmakers. Because even if you look at the insider trading policies prior to 2012 in Congress, you didn't even get punished for insider trading. So the rules which would apply to CEOs wouldn't apply to lawmakers. And I think this is so dangerous. And now that they have changed it, but we know that did they really? Because you still see it happening all the time. And the regulations are very shaky. So I think the problem is not just with billionaires. The problem is with the system, because we're seeing that people are making so much money during COVID, during housing crisis, and we know how they're making it. So you can't just change the behavior of one person, because even when we're talking about can billionaires be ethical, I think they can't. But I also think it's very hard to be an ethical person in general, and it's also easy to have high morals when they're not tested.
John, your take on whether there can be, I don't know, any sort of reform going forward that will reshape our economic model, and whether social media could actually help?
I think social media has certainly, for the four of us here, certainly helped to raise awareness. And I definitely think we're at that stage now of raising awareness, people becoming more conscious of these things going on. And, you know, if that's where we are for the next 50 years, at least we will have moved the needle forward in some way, shape, or form. I certainly hope other things happen a lot faster, whether that's legislatively around the world, because these problems are not unique to the places we're dialing in from. They're happening globally. I think as well, really figuring out how to change people's mindsets away from the idolization of this wealth. I think in the next 10 years, we're supposed to have the first trillionaire, and I'm pretty sure we know who that's going to be. It's going to be Elon Musk, and he has such a fandom around him. So to change that away from the people that are using wealth in the wrong ways to those that are using it a bit more ethically. And for anybody listening and watching, certainly anyone that signed on to the giving pledge, billionaires that have pledged to give away a majority of their wealth by the time they die, is a good place to start. We should be focusing more on promoting those sorts of billionaires, ethical or not, versus the ones that really we know are not doing the best things for society.
Darren, when we spoke to you before the show, you mentioned the word apathy. Are we faced with an unsurmountable amount of challenges that will just...
Ethical billionaires, folks. Why didn't I think of that? Did you see this clip of John Bolton on USAID?
I might say I've got some personal experience here. I was in charge of policy and budget at USAID during the Reagan administration when we undertook a major effort to fix it. And I'm going to show you my farewell present from AID. You can see it's a hand grenade. And it says on it, John R. Bolton, truest Reaganaut, AID 1983. This is a style of government. And that's the way we approached it.
Well,
I might say I've got some personal...
That's what USAID actually is. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, I love the fact that it's getting its funding cut. Good. The reason why USAID is the only thing that you're hearing in the media and not all the other stuff is that this is the only place where the intelligence community and therefore their media allies are talking. They don't care about, like, you know, the Consumer Protection Agency. That Democratic donors love that that's getting repealed. The only reason USAID is even coming up is because you're because this is where the deep state actually has a little pushback. So if you're talking about USAID, you're a fucking dope. I want to see American soft power destroyed. All right, that'll be a good end of the stream. I'm going to send you guys, gals, non-binary pals over to VO. Hope you enjoyed the stream. Thank you for supporting everything. Here's the Discord. Make sure you join the Discord. And you can come hang out. I'll be back tomorrow, normal times, or Wednesday. We need to figure out, I want to create some like themes for various days of the week, chat. I think that'll be fun going forward. War Crime Wednesday? Oh, no. Weird Wednesday? We'll figure it out. Alrighty, everybody. Thank you so much for all the support. You guys are the best. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Stay safe out there. Solidarity forever. And that's how socialism wins. All right, everybody. Free Palestine from the river to the sea.